Welcome to the Dogger Pass podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom, at Dan Tom MMA. Analyst is work you can find around the web, multiple places for about a decade now. But on this here program, the Dog or Pass podcast, well, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today, tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's for the fight. Going to be a little bit of an earlier start for UFC Fight Night 260, UFC Perth. And of course, as usual, I got to bring in the big guns, both literally, figuratively, every which way. They're not just red hot, they're white hot guns because they're being run by the Mad Lab himself. My guy, Mad Lab Mike at Mad Lab MMA, who you can find at themadlabmma.com. What's up, Mike? It's great to have you back. It's great to be back, man.
Yeah, man, I missed you, bro. It's been 2 weeks. We didn't even really chat that much on the break. I think we had a couple small texts back and forth, and that was it. So we didn't even get to chat much. I didn't talk to you, Dan. So yeah, I'm psyched to be back, bro. We got a good card, the last card. We obviously coming off a little bit of a high with all the boxing and MMA that we had. A little bit of a break was nice, and now we roll back into it.
I think that was it. I mean, we've both been busy, even on the break times, whether it's personal stuff or other professional endeavors. I know you cover the football over there. I can't even imagine having to deal with that as well as the boxing. But you're right, Mike. We came off of a real big week that we saw last week. We won't touch on it too much, but it was a big weekend. And I at least want to give my guy, Mike, some props on some really excellent calls, on some excellent fights. Of course, we collaborated on a big dog with Diego Lopez, who headlined the last card. When we have those consensus dogs, folks, we've been hitting on it. And when there is a dog in the main event, chances are at least one of us are on it. This time, both of us were. It was also the Benji Boy dog of the week. So it was, I was able to end on a positive note, even though I couldn't quite get into the black. Feel free to light me up there. I'm not going to waste your guys' time complaining about it. But Mike, I got to give you props for not just the collaboration play, your part in that, but I'm sure you'll talk briefly about Crawford, who you had one of the best breakdowns on there. I wasn't just blowing steam. You went and proved it. And you were also 2-0 for the bets. We'll touch on that later because it's a crucial head-to-head, folks, this week. But the Alexander Hernandez Whisperer, the dog whisperer, I know Hernandez was only a dog briefly, but that was a difficult fight to call. We were on opposite sides. And Mike, I got to give you your props. You're not one of victory lap, so I got to say it. Great calls again, brother.
Yeah, thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Yeah, that one could have went either way. I mean, that was just me kind of rewarding him for hitting that big dog. I mean, he's done well for me in the past.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I am still kind of a little bit of a believer of him, probably a little more than I should be. So, and Diego's age and stuff like that. But to me, that wasn't like a big dog hit. But sure. It was a fun fight, though. It was a fun. I just wanted to bring up the Canelo and Crawford fight really quick. There was a lot of people out there. And these are the fights that I kind of like because it really shows you who watches boxing and who doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, you see a lot of people listen to media and stuff like that, and they got to build the fight up. They have to say, like, yeah, Crawford's going to come in. This is the best pound-for-pound guy. A lot of people shit on Canelo for, just not being super active and getting older and stuff like that. And so they watch the media. But the people that did pick Crawford and picked them at dog money, say at plus 130 or whatever, like, I don't believe in bad wagers. Like, I don't. If your wager wins, it's a good wager. That's honestly what I look at. But there is very uneducated wagers, and that was a more uneducated wager than I've seen in a long time. If you took Crawford straight up, instead of take at -1 and plus 130, instead of taking the plus 240, to me that was just complete uneducation on the Crawford betting side. I said it in the video that I did for Mayo Mito Network. I said I would be absolutely blown away. I couldn't even imagine Crawford knocking Canelo out. Number one, Canelo's got a phenomenal chin. He's fought up to light heavyweight, and he's fighting a guy 3 to 4 weight divisions below him. There was no way Crawford was knocking him out. So if you were going to be on that side, there was only one bet to make, and that was the plus 240. So we ended up hitting that. I kind of alluded to that in the video, so I hope you guys did watch it. And for more bigger fights, I'm going to be doing this, hopefully, if Pat allows me to use the platform again. But it was kind of weird for me because when I saw the people up plus 130, I hit plus 130. I was like, yeah, good. You hit a dog. It's great. But it wasn't a good bet. Like, it was a very uneducated bet. So if you guys watched the video and you got the plus 240, congratulations.
Yeah, man, that was a real slick call, and you're absolutely right. It really kind of tells the boxing appreciators, people who can, still be enthralled by that type of a fight, whereas other people kind of were just like, it wasn't the blood and guts and stuff that I'm used to. I love boxing. I don't talk about it much. I'm not going to wax here, folks, but I definitely was an appreciator of it, an appreciator of your breakdown. Hopefully, Pat allows you that platform. Before we get onto the breakdown, I just want to say real quick. Apologies for commenters last week. Not that it matters because people will find a way to complain, but we had some connection issues the last show or two, and I was having to kind of come in on Mike. I really, it's a pet peeve of mine when I listen to podcasts. I hate people who interrupt, so I really do my best to not do it as little as possible. But I was getting a lot of complaints on that, Mike, and even you,
No, that was. I'll jump in on this one real quick. So, because I just cut you off now.
no, please.
That was my issue, guys. My issue was for some reason in my office in Orange, it's very enclosed, and for some reason that's the one and only room where the reception is bad. So I just got a Wi-Fi booster. I got a booster in there that my laptop's going to be hardwired into it. Reason why I'm not in there today is because it's not working. I got the tech guy working on it, so I didn't want to take a risk again. But there was a delay with me. So when he thought I was done, I wasn't done. So if it was any kind of rollover, which I personally didn't see it was kind of on my end. He was just kind of going with the flow. So
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. But as we know, people will complain anyways. Hopefully, y'all got that message though, and we'll get to the breakdowns. We'll get to the good stuff. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. So let's get to it, Mike. We got UFC Fight Night 260, UFC Perth, UFC Fight Night Ulberg versus Reyes. Let's get some odds going. Dayton is the man behind the show. Thank you, Dayton. He's always on point with this stuff. I got to let him lead the show because he can lead the blind here. We got
you know what Dayton did? You know what Dayton did last week for the boxing show?
What'd he do?
I totally forgot because when he throws up graphics, I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome. He threw up the graphic, and for the Vargas fight, he put Fernando Vargas' dad.
Oh, wow.
Yo,
that's
David,
great. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I love it.
David, did you know you did that?
I had no idea.
Yeah, I looked at it later. I was like, dude, that's Fernando Vargas Sr.
That's fucking great. That's great. Yeah, we definitely come across those on our research, but that's Dayton should do that on purpose, actually, just to mess with us. I think that would be hilarious.
People paying attention.
Yeah, totally. Don't get too racist with it or anything, Dayton. But you can mix some people up. I was just kidding. Obviously, we got Ulberg, the favorite here, folks. Minus 250. The comeback on Reyes plus 200. The over set at 2.5 rounds for this 5-round main event. Plus 130 for the over 2.5. Under 2.5. Minus 150. I've been tempted on these totals where I'm like, hey, we got two guys who are going to counter. The over is low key, as much as I was bumping my chest for Diego Lopez, to keep the same energy, Mike, I said I was more confident in the total than I was the side. I thought it was going to go over. You could argue similar dynamics here because both guys, although, one is an orthodox fighter, Ulberg, he likes that check hook, that pull out hook. He looks like he's been Alex Poatan Pereira, having to play him for Izzy for multiple camps is kind of bedded into his style. Reyes is a similar dynamic. He's southpaw. That being said, violence here wouldn't surprise me, Mike, as I pass it on you because I'm curious on your take on this one. Let me just hit you in the audience with the southpaw stats that I always have for you guys. Ulberg, 2-1 against UFC level lefties. Of course, those wins are a really lackluster win against Fabio Charant because he was coming off of his first loss, which was his UFC debut to a southpaw, Kennedy and Cheku. And of course, he fought who is now middleweight. It was back when he was at light heavyweight, Ihor Peteria. Shout out to the PYM boys throwing their cans. And by the way, shout out to anybody in the chat. Hit the like, subscribe. But yeah, those are his southpaw stats there. But stats don't always decide the fight. Styles make fights, and you're a guy who can break down the styles very well. How do you see this one laying out, Mike?
Yeah, this one, I was a little confused by this, if I'm being honest with you, because both of these guys, you can make an argument for both guys. I know sometimes I do say that often, but ultimately I do pick a side. But you can make an argument for both guys in this fight. And when you look at Ulberg, what are the arguments you can make for him? First of all, if you go with the home factor, he is, fighting on his own soil. Crowd's going to be up for him. He's a very marketable guy. Well spoken. He's got the fresher a game right now. Snappy kicks, good kickboxing, fights long. does a lot of good things. And the one thing that, with everything that you put it all together, with the power that he has, the one thing that, Reyes is a danger zone with is his chin, right? So that's where you look at it, you're like, this is 5 rounds. He's got 5 rounds to find his chin. Fresher guy, that's the argument there. His grappling isn't as bad as I thought it would be, so he does have grappling. But when you look at his level of opposition, like, he really hasn't fought anybody. I mean, he fought a very old, aging Jan. Ozdemir, not high on. Menefield, not high on. If you go Poteri, if you go down the list, like, they're all very middle of the way fighters. You know what I mean? So that's kind of a flag. Also, he does tend to slow down a little bit. He does tend to kind of start out kind of dictating the space that he wants, kind of owning the center of the cage. And then as time goes on, he'll start moving back and he'll start allowing you to kind of control the real estate. When you look at Dominick Reyes, this is a guy who, how can he argue? I mean, at one time, he's fought everybody. I don't care what anyone says when people say, well, he maybe beat John Jones. No, he did beat John Jones. I mean, the cards don't indicate it.
Yep.
The judges don't indicate it.
100%.
Dominick Reyes 1,000% beat John Jones and got ripped off that night. Okay, and the fact of the matter is, we saw that he's a dog. We've seen him in fights where, we've seen him get knocked out. We've seen him get completely, but we've also seen situations where this guy is an absolute dog. In the beginning, when he first came back off these knockouts, I was like, this could be a very big momentum thing. This could be a mental thing where he's just not wired together anymore. Like, he's actually afraid of his own chin. This could be a problem. But now, as he's like, little by little, he's adding these wins in a row, and he's tying these wins together. He's slowly but surely getting confidence back in himself. Slowly but surely saying, yeah, I can do this. Like, I still can do this. I'm still a UFC level fighter. I'm still a very high caliber fighter. So even though my fear of his chin is that he's going to get caught with something big and he's going to get knocked out, if you push that aside and you just look at who's the actual better fighter, Dominick Reyes is not too far behind Carlos Ulberg when it comes to striking. Dominick Reyes is a very good striker. I don't like the way he pushes forward all the time. Like, sometimes he charges in almost like Thiago Santos does. That's dangerous. But Carlos Ulberg is not a guy with those fast switch fibers who's going to send a knee right up the middle and catch you with something. So not too scared about that. I'm just scared for his chin. But when you look at the overall game, you look at the striking is very similar. I think Dominick Reyes is the better wrestler, fought the better level of competition, has a nice little momentum on his side. I think this is a complete dog or pass situation. So I'm going Dominick Reyes. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it done later on in the fight inside the distance.
I like it, man. I like it because I feel a little less crazy for where I ended up, and listening to your math on how you got there, Mike. Very similar analysis. Again, I don't disagree from a skills perspective. Both guys are underrated grapplers. Like, we've seen a little bit less from Ulberg, right? And Dominick Reyes, has shown his grappling. Even on the regionals, he actually showed decent riding positions, works well from top side. And even you go back to that fight with Yuri where he ended up on bottom, like, he's throwing up submissions, but then also has good get-up sensibilities, will fight in the hands. He can scramble. Seems really comfortable down there. And again, you got to remember that he was training under Joe Stevenson, old school, Cobra Kai, Victorville, out there, and still retains a lot of that. He went and he trained, around at a lot of different camps, Elevation, Denver, Vertime, to share MMA and fitness. Now he seems like he's kind of, like you said, he's got his confidence back under him. So maybe he's not stressing, having to I got to be dedicated to this camp 100%, and he's experienced enough now where he's kind of formed his own camps. We'll see how that works. Obviously, Ulberg is at City Kickboxing, and he's got a lot of that City Kickboxing interplay, a lot of it was, like I said, a Poetan imitation, and something we're going to talk about a lot, Mike, because there's a decent amount of southpaws. Okay, I've got 7 southpaw stats coming your way, guys, which means 7 matchups where we got orthodox versus southpaw. And one thing you got to look at, people got mad at me at this too. They say I bring up past bets or whatever. And guys, I hate myself more than you do. I will say meaner stuff than me than you will ever say. That being said, if you're not going to be right, at least be funny, because, man, one thing I will defend myself in a fucking land full of just people victory lapping, I'm the shit. I'm like the least that guy. I'm about to bring up a bet, so hopefully the people that cry about me bringing up past bets or whatever, it's not even a bet. It's just more of a call and a matchup, because, again, it's apropos, it's style, it's to what we're talking about, and it's stylistically relevant. I shouldn't have to stop the momentum of my breakdown to explain this, but if people are going to complain about a really basic ass common sense thing, then that's unfortunately I gotta at least explain it once here. So with that caveat aside, kind of like I said with the Kevin Borjas and Sumaderji fight, right? Borjas is good. He's got all these things. Yeah, he I love it when he flows. He's similar to, guys like we'll talk about, Jack Jenkins will flow off that lead hand, hook, and then leg kick. Ulberg, same thing. Not so much of a Dutchy Aldo style like I described. Again, more of the city kickboxing, jab, feint, leg kick interplay. He's really good at that. And again, it's not an end all be all. It doesn't mean that they don't know how to strike, or that even if they don't know how to strike, they won't win the fight. However, when you're looking at these open stance dynamics, folks, if the orthodox fighter who's facing the southpaw, if they're a very jab heavy fighter, if their offense is reliant on that jab or just their lead hand, and we'll talk about this more as we get down to the card, they are very dependent on that orthodox versus orthodox leg kick lane. That's kind of bad news going into a fight with the southpaw, right? And I'm sure Mike will second some of those opinions there. Again, doesn't mean that's where your pick should go. It doesn't mean it's an end all be all, but if we're trying to break it down like we are here, that is something to think about. And something I did notice is that Ulberg, he loses a lot of his jabs and leg kicks in those open stance affairs. Now, Fabio Charant wasn't throwing much, and he was a low-level guy, and Ulberg's confidence was super low, and that fight was, a bit further out as far as his UFC sample goes. But, Mike, I don't know if you remember that fight. Fabio Charant couldn't miss whenever he threw that southpaw left. It's just one of those radar things. You see that with guys in boxing. They're not used to the angle. And you're like, holy crap, if this motherfucker commits to his rear hand, he could tag him all day. And Poteria, the same thing, even though that fight didn't last long. And Poteria, as he is, he's kind of very glass cannon. He's do or die real quick. So he died. And then, of course, with the Ncheku fight, he actually gets knocked out by the patent southpaw right hook. And it's the patent way, too, where the orthodox fighter is throwing their right hand, which leads them into that lead hook, right? That's going to be a dynamic to watch for here, even though Reyes is very left hand and left kick oriented, and he does rush a bit, like Mike was saying. Something I did notice, Mike, that I wanted to bring up at that note is and I love this, he's been using his lead hand more. I love southpaws who jab, because if you're in a southpaw versus southpaw fight, the lead hand is important. And again, we just broke it down in open stance dynamics. The lead hand is not only important, it's an inherent edge, because most orthodox fighters, especially in MMA, where they barely know how to jab in a regular freaking matchup,
you know what
they
I
lose their
also
jabs.
like? I also like southpaws that are lead hand dominant.
Yes.
And that's honestly me. I'm a southpaw with lead hand dominance. Like a lot of people, it's not the case. Their lead hand, their power hand is the one behind them.
Yeah.
So you fight a guy who's lead hand dominant with a powerful jab and a powerful, hook at his disposal at the lead. It throws a lot of people off.
100%. And it's harder. I don't know if it's rare, but it's harder to spot the opposite. Like Chris Curtis is a right-handed southpaw, but Jan Blachowicz, somebody who fought Reyes, and I think that dynamic in reverse really messed him up. You just nailed it, Mike, right? Because Blachowicz is a left-handed orthodox fighter, and those are harder to spot. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And he was lighting Reyes up with that close stance, the kick to the liver and that close side and those other things. And not that Ulberg can't, mimic those things. He's a flexible striker. He's a competent kickboxer, like you talked about, Mike, right? But again, in that open stance dynamic, how much does the volume drop, right? How much does the effectiveness drop without that lead hand to set up all those other weapons that he is so dependent on? It's great we love fighters who jab, Mike. I'm preaching to the choir with you, but you understand once that jab goes, things can get kooky to predict in there, right?
I would honestly, if I were Dominick Reyes in here, right out of the gate, I would try to catch one of those kicks and try to even show a takedown. Yeah. The minute you do that, you're taking a guy who's a kickboxer. Yeah, I mean, he can grapple, but at the end of the day, he's a kickboxer. You're taking a guy who's going to be a little bit more hesitant to throw, a little bit more. He's going to try to parry a little bit. He's going to try to feel for you. He's going to be a little more hesitant to just uncork and bite down and throw, because he's going to be afraid that maybe an overextension, or he's going to load up too much. You're going to change levels and take him down. So I would show that. If I was Dominick Reyes, I would show a takedown very early.
100%. Yeah, I think so too. And I think if the fight goes long, even though both fighters have shown to kind of flag as the fights go long and in victory or defeat, I do think Reyes has a slight edge there too. So rather than getting hung up on the totals, Mike, I'm actually going to kick for coverage here, and I'm going to punt on the money line. I know we just talked about, certain dynamics, like with boxing, it's especially with that context, maybe it's much more sensible the way you laid it out. MMA, it's a little harder to pigeonhole that. This definitely doesn't match that context. So I'm going to kick for coverage. I'm actually firing on the Reyes money line. You don't have to, give your hand if you're not locked in quite yet. I'm sure people can find all that information at themadlabmma.com. But would I be crazy for punting on a money line in this spot when we're getting over 2-1? Keep in mind, Reyes, this fight opened a lot tighter, folks, where it should have been. But Reyes over 2-1. I feel like I'm justified in a stab. What say you, Mike?
Yeah, no, listen. Like I said in the beginning, it's a dog or pass situation for sure. Like I would not lay 2-1 odds. Carlos Ulberg, really, on many people, if I'm being honest with you. So and like I said, there's a lot at your disposal that is to like at 2-1. You got a guy who's a former title challenger, a guy who actually did beat John Jones, despite what anyone says. Yes, he's had his ups and downs, but at the end of the day, he's on a nice little streak here. He's got his confidence back. So you give me 2-1 on that? Sure, I think there's plenty of value there.
All right. Well, folks, that's an alignment on a dog. I'm not saying, but it kind of feels right. Don't be surprised if this ends up our Benji boy dog of the night, so to speak here. But we're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it going. We've got. I think we covered that one pretty good. UFC are hitting us with these 14 fight cards, so we're trying to speed this up even faster for you folks. Get through this. Let's go to the co-main event, which wasn't initially the co-main event. I do not like what it bumped. We'll get to that in a second, but it makes sense because UFC loves the big guys. So we got Jimmy Crute versus Erslan as your official co-main event. Jimmy fucking Crute is minus 185. The comeback on Ivan is plus 155. Total for this fight, 1.5. They're expecting it to be violent, and they're not sure where it's going because the over is at minus 120. The under 1.5 plus 100. Mike, I'm curious where you are on this one. I feel like we could say the same thing about speaking of trustworthy favorites, but I don't know if it necessarily is going to dictate my pick, although that analysis could transfer from the previous fight. What's your analysis on this one?
It doesn't matter who Jimmy Crute's fighting. I just look at it as a Jimmy Crute fight, and can you trust Jimmy Crute? That's really all there is. We know how good he is. We know how good he's not. Like, what you're getting from him. You know what his ceiling is, kind of, sort of. What is he going to show you in there? And that's the whole thing. Like, when you look at his entire resume and you look at like all these first rounds, it's not like, wow, first round finishes. Their first round, he's getting finished. He finishes. He's getting finished. He finishes. He's getting finished. Then all of a sudden he has 2 draws on his record. You're like, all right, what's the pattern with those, with this shit? Like, why is he having this now? And it seems like Jimmy Crute only has like that 1 year. Like, he's going to come out in the first round. He's going to put it on you. He's either going to get finished. He's either going to finish you putting it on you, or you're going to finish him because, he made a mistake. But if he goes to the next round now Jimmy Crute allows you to get back into the fight because he put so much into that first round. Now you got a 1-1 fight. Then it goes to the third round. You got 2 guys that are kind of gassed. One guy from putting it on you, the other guy from getting it put on him. Second round, and now you got 2 guys who are just like lumberjacking in there, and it's like, all right, who wants to fight? And boom, you get a draw. Like, you don't see many draws in, you know what I mean? Fighters with 2 draws in like a matter of 3 fights. Like, it's not very common. So he just steps on the gas and he goes. Now, when you look at Erslan, this is a guy who fought Navajo Stirling, who I'm not impressed with, and he fought Kutalaba, who there's certain fights I am impressed, and certain fights I'm not. So the sample size with him is kind of small too. But I feel like Erslan is the perfect fight to fall into the trap of a Jimmy Crute style. Like, he's going to come forward. He's going to allow Jimmy Crute to kind of do what he wants. Not do what he wants. Not going to just allow him to roll him. But I'm saying he's going to give Jimmy Crute the fight that he wants. Jimmy Crute's going to probably have one of those first round, dominations where even if it goes to the second round, you're going to be sitting there. The people who don't know really his style, you're going to be going, oh, let's fucking start counting our money now. Little do they know, the second round might be where Jimmy Crute fucking falters.
Yeah.
But I don't see that with Erslan. I just don't see him being that guy who's going to be able to come back from something like that. And I'd be really shocked, especially Jimmy Crute. Like I said, he's actually fighting a little bit better now. He's getting his, he has looked a little better. He's fighting at home. They got nothing to gain from Erslan being 0-2, even though they don't got really a ton to gain with him either. But they're taking a home guy. They're putting him on the card for the crowd. He's on the main card for a reason. So I do like Jimmy Crute here. I think he has a chance to roll Erslan.
I love it, Mike. As the folks know or should know, if they trust what we say, I guess. We speak very minimally about these, right? These fights and stuff. So you're getting a lot of genuine reactions, folks. We're not planned. We're not trying to pump each other up, to look good or whatever. We're not afraid to end up on opposite sides, all that. But I love it when I can put something down and you pick it right up, what I'm saying, right? As far as the trustworthiness of Crute. And Mike, looking at a lot of these matchups, right? I know a lot of them, not to tip a hat or be negative or whatever, but to be fair, a lot of these fights didn't catch our eye. We're going to break it down for you guys. Don't worry, folks.
Yeah.
But
mine will be smaller and smaller and smaller as we go on, guys. Don't worry.
Same. But notes that I wrote kind of overall for this card, Mike, I wrote a lot of live bets and I wrote a lot of stayaways.
Yeah.
And this fight is arguably both, right?
Yeah.
It's a stay away because you got an untrustworthy guy versus a dangerous, unproven guy. And then you also managed to give a nice dynamic there as far as for the live bettors for something to look at, say what you will about Crute, but if this gets extended, he has shown he can dog things out, even if it's an ugly draw to Alonzo Menafield, right? Who Menafield, say what you will, underrated wrestling, stupid power, which, should be a terrible matchup for Crute on paper, right? Which it kind of was, but again, in his defense, right? He can dog these things out for that dynamic. So I love that you mentioned that. And yeah, this is one of those fights though that is arguably both. There's probably going to be live bet spots if it even gets there. You could have some entry points, but honestly, this feels like more of a stay away. I'm going to pick Crute here. This is a fight where maybe, if anything, just because there's such an obvious path, and if there's a decent number, I might take it. Obviously, obvious paths are not obvious in MMA, right? But what I'm talking about here is maybe the Crute by subline. If I'm looking to fill that round robin, like maybe something like that. But I'm not.
Well, I can see that. But I can see that. I can see him. I can see him subbing them. What is it sitting at now? Sitting at minus 170? Is that what it is?
Money line, yeah. Let me see what he's getting for sub. It's not posted at a lot of places. A lot of the props are still coming in, folks. And with these 14 fight cards, even with the week break, it's nice to see the bookmakers are human and they're not fast about it either.
That's about where I have it. That's where about after I broke it down. That's about where I had it, about minus 170, 175. So there's really not any. Anything over that, I'd be like, guys, be very careful. Like if it was
plus 275 for the sub, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you. Plus 275 for the sub, Mike.
There's some juice to that.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't have to. Plus 275 is a valid number for whether you're doing a 4 or a 5-legger format of a round robin, and that way you're not invested, a unit plus money or 1.7 units to win one on Jimmy Crute. You know what I'm saying? You're more like invested, maybe a quarter of a unit if you want to break down that round robin or whatever, how much actually is on stake. Like that's why I like the round robins too, folks, is you can still have fun whether you're a degenerate casual gambler or otherwise, and maybe save yourself some exposure where you don't need it. So let's move on to what was the co-main event. And I don't know about you, Mike. I think this should be the co-main event. I think it's one of the better low-key fights in the card. Hold that answer while I give these odds, and I'll kick it to you, Mike, to answer that. But we got
read some of these things while you're doing that.
Yeah, no worries. We got Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Taveras. Jenkins minus 300. Looks very Australian when he's got his mustache and mullet. I mean, that's the classic Aussie uniform. I don't know. We got to come up with the name. If Canadians have Canadian tuxedos, what do the Australians have, right? Taveras, of course, he's a contender series fighter because he's got a last name that you've seen spelled one way forever. And of course, if they come to the contender series, it's got to be freaking different. Plus 240 for Taveras, minus 165 for the over 2.5 rounds, under 2.5 rounds for plus 145. Mike, I'm curious, before you give me your analysis on this fight, do you agree or disagree? This is one of the better low-key fights that wouldn't have been terrible as a co-main event, all things considered.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good fight. First of all, before we do any further, I don't know if it's George or Jorge Montario. Jorge or George, what's going on? Thanks for watching. Joe, Aussie. Hope maybe you're going to the fights. I don't know. Phantom Punch Breakdown, what's going on? James Kendrick has a question. Serious note, is this a card you just not bet because of how bad it is? Listen, James, I'll tell you this right now. I'm a big advocate for being transparent, and I always say this. MMA is the one thing that we have all year round. There's no break. It's not like football or basketball where you have a break. It's every week minus a couple. You can sit out a card. I tell my subscribers all the time. And that's behind the paywall. I'm like, guys, this is a card where pull back on your bankroll a little bit. Don't put your normal bankroll in. There's no reason to. There's another fight next week. That's why I don't bet the Contender Series a lot. I don't think there's any edge in Contender Series. Last week, well, this week I only put one in and it didn't hit. But last week I went 2-0 just because we were up a little bit. There was nothing going on. I was like, let me throw something. And we ended up hitting.
That was nice.
I never bet Contender Series, bro.
Yeah.
Never, because there's no edge, dude. It's regional circuit guys you're betting. Like to me, that's like kind of degenerate, So you absolutely can sit back if you're not feeling it. If you're not feeling it this week, sit back, chill out. Use that money and allocate it to football or allocate it to going out with your girlfriend or your kids or whatever. So absolutely, there's plenty of cards, and this is one of those cards you might want to sit back on. So anyway, about this fight though, I actually got stuff to say about this fight because this is like kind of I'm kind of shitting on my own style here. When I look at Jack Jenkins when he first came in, obviously we all know, like if you really follow MMA and you follow him, his leg kicks are out of this world. The guy's got such torque and leverage on him. He knows how to hit the spot. He can utilize it a little bit more. I'd like to actually see him use his leg kicks a little bit more, but he's got Barboza-esque kicks, like when he really, really wants to use them. And that's a weapon. And who is that the biggest weapon against? That's the biggest weapon against a guy who is a very lead leg heavy boxer in Taveras, who's got very good boxing. Like his boxing is polished. He's going to come forward. He's going to throw hands. He's got good combinations. He's got good power. Guy's a good fighter. But when I look at that line, and I'm like the 3-1 odd, 3-1 odds for Jack Jenkins. If you take his kicks away, or if you really just don't know, like he says, I'm not going to utilize him as much. I'd say that's a crazy line. That's crazy. But the fact of the matter is the reason why it's still crazy because you don't know if he's going to come in and have that at his arsenal right at the front line, infantry, front line. I'm going to just bomb this guy with leg kicks. That's the path to make this a 3-1 fight. He comes in and he just chips away at that lead heavy leg. Boxers do that. That's what we need to do. I used to get chewed apart all the time in the legs. I'm not afraid to admit it. I come from a boxing background. I'm very lead heavy. I trust my hands. My feet never leave the ground. Never. My feet are pivoted. My feet are moving. My feet are trying to create angles. So the minute someone starts firing kicks on me, I'm like, I feel like I'm on fucking Mars. And if you come from that style of background where it's hard to change your dance pattern, if you're a salsa dancer, and then all of a sudden I bring you into like an Italian form of dancing, like everything is very different. So this is a guy who, if he's smart, if he comes in and he's smart and he just goes very kick heavy on Taveras' legs, he absolutely can look like a 3-1 favorite. I just don't know if he's going to. Like I'm assuming he's gonna implore that, but how much are you gonna implore? You got to implore a good heavy dose to just slow this guy down. If you slow down his lead leg, you're slowing down his movement. Then you got to sit and duck in front of you. So that's what I'd like to see him do. I'm picking Jack Jenkins. I think I'm hoping he's going to do that. But if he does that, I think this could actually look 3-1.
I enjoy it that we got a potential head-to-head here. Again, we'll save the Benji Boy Dogs of the Week, the DOP parlay bet, and our head-to-head for the end of the show, as we always do, folks. And appreciate our producer Dayton hitting us up with the timestamps, or you guys, so you guys can skip as you will. But this fight is worth talking about. It's an excellent striking affair. Jack Jenkins does have, I think, some regional wrestling. I don't know how strong it was from Australia or whatever. He also comes from rugby, so he translates well in that department. However, takedowns seem to be his weakness. You look at Ramon Taveras, he's going to give him the striking fight that Jenkins wants. Taveras, less experience, right? We talk about emotional betting all the time in the show, right? Like you got to be careful about that. And I think a lot of people are emotionally chasing Taveras because he goes from being on the wrong end of an arguable bad stoppage there, and I have a lot of respect for Jason McDonald. But in their first fight in the Contender Series, Series City, then the UFC matchmakers do that thing that I always talk about, their fetish for rematches. I'm not just saying that, folks. Like, they will literally rematch stuff from the Contender Series. They'll probably do it again from this last week. And then, Taveras, gets a decision that, people felt was controversial. Now, I don't know if it was like an outright, robbery. I don't like to throw that word around. There's a lot of fights that people will be like, oh, it was close rounds, but it was a robbery. I'm like, well, if it's a close round, how is it a robbery by your own logic? So I do think we all need to be a little bit, careful and pump the brakes on that a bit. But yeah, could there be a lot of, emotional betting as well as the on paper glances that make sense that yes, Jenkins should be the favorite here. I got no disagreement there, right? Should he be this big of a favorite? I don't think so. I've been a big Jack Jenkins fan. He's got excellent leg kicks, sets everything up really nicely with the lead hand. But when you look at it, he gets off the Contender Series. He fights a guy named Don Shanis, who's, tough Boston guy, but really didn't have much to offer, got like submitted by, Sadiq Youssef, which I know that's, that's no joke. And, that was short notice fight or whatnot, but he goes to decision with that guy. Right. And Shanis even took a round off him and which is something to note, right? Jamal Emmers split decision. People felt should have went to Emmers. I picked Jenkins, but I didn't bet the fight. Very sympathetic to Emmers bettors there, but at the same time, it's not another fight where, to keep that same energy, right? That we did with Taveras. Let's keep it for Jenkins here, right? I don't know if that's like a crazy, robbery or anything. I felt like it was very just. I believe it was rounds 1 and 2. Whereas again, Emmers, he kind of flagged in round 3 against Emmers. He lost a round there. Again, note that. We got Chepe Mariscal. Now, he was probably winning that first round against Chepe for what it's worth, folks. And Chepe is really good. He's a guy I've been high on. He was a regional superstar, finally got over to the UFC after a tough regional slate. But that arm injury was legit, right? And Jack Jenkins, to even his own admission, and people that have trained with him have said this, by the way, going into this fight, the guy struggles a lot with health issues and has kind of bad luck with that, right? Like Herbert Burns, he probably should have finished him earlier. That really upset me because that was like a round 2 hot round. Like Herbert Burns should not have made it to round 3. But again, Jack Jenkins showed holes in his games. He can be taken down. He can be intimidated even by a Herbert Burns, so to speak, even just by that dynamic. Then he faces Gabriel Santos, a fight he probably should have lost. Gabriel Santos, better than his record indicates, kind of a guy, real tough, well-rounded guy. But it's tough too because you're like, oh, did Jack Jenkins just, kind of fade in this one like he did the other one? It's like, well, I wouldn't hold that one against Jenkins too much because for those who don't know, he had another health issue in that one where apparently like his lungs started pumping out some weird fluid and it like started making his arms numb, even though like he's showing like, and he's like giving high fives to him at the end of the fight or whatever. And he can still tap out, but apparently he was dealing with a lot of stuff is what I'm trying to say, to be fair to Jack Jenkins. But in that Gabriel Santos fight, and I'm going long-winded here, folks, but I did plant some seeds that I will circle back on. And the Gabriel Santos fight is important because Jack Jenkins is 0-0 against UFC level lefties. And that is the big thing here, right? Like I talked off at the top of the show, fighters who use their lead hand, if they like that orthodox versus orthodox leg kick look, they could be in trouble. So how does Jack Jenkins do against a southpaw? I went through his regionals, like all the way back to fights like Rod Costa and whatnot. And it's like, oh, those guys only go southpaw at the end of the fight after their leg has like been chewed up for a few rounds, right? Gabriel Santos comes out. He's a switch stance fighter, folks, but he fights southpaw a lot. Comes out southpaw immediately. I did not like Jack Jenkins' game from southpaw. Now, he arguably wins the round from Santos because he drops him with a high kick. And if you look, Ramon Taveras, he was also knocked out with a head kick on the regionals, right? So yeah, okay, maybe we don't want to give credit to that early stoppage on Contender Series. However, he did get legitimately stopped on the regionals, folks. That being said, here's the context of that fight, right? Now, it could happen here because Jenkins drops Gabriel Santos with your classic open stance right head kick, right? That's what, after going to the body and legs, he goes up high. Very standard. Now, I didn't like it because he was throwing those naked because, again, Jack Jenkins usually doesn't throw naked kicks. However, when he's in open stance, he's losing his open hand. So I don't know how replicable that is, but Gabriel Santos is able to get up, recover right away, this and that. And when you go to watch Taveras get knocked out by the head kick, one, it's way early in his career, Mike, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but you're someone that always reminds me and the audience of this, where take it with a grain of salt if you're looking past like 6 fights or so, right? If you're looking past a certain amount of years or so, take it with a grain of salt. And this is a case too where like people are like, oh, Taveras is moving up in weight. Maybe that's why the line is so justified. He's a former bantamweight. Listen, Taveras is in the right division, man. He was fighting not just at bantamweight when he couldn't make it. He was also fighting down at flyweight in those days with a whole bunch of catch weights in between. In fact, all of his losses, those losses that I cited, are actually at lower weight classes and not even at weight classes. They're actually at catch weights, right? So there's circumstances there. And the guy who catches him is not only a completely different body type than Jack Jenkins. He's a tall, lanky dude. He's also a southpaw, right? And so, like, wait, where does the head kick come from? Is it like your classic close stance head kick then that's just switched around because they're southpaws? No, Mike. It was actually like a step up lead switch kick. It's like a really, you don't see that head kick a lot, even in Orthodox versus Orthodox matchups, right? Much less in the southpaw versus southpaw fight. So, in other words, it was a really weird context for it to happen in. Not that it can't be replicated. Jack Jenkins is an excellent kicker, and he's going to be going more body and head kicks because that leg kick won't be as available. Sure, he's got step up like Poatan, outside leg kicks and inside leg kicks. They're not as good, man. Jack Jenkins kicks like a horse, but because he kicks like a horse, you can tell when he faces a southpaw, his kicks aren't as good. His striking's not as good. More importantly, his defense isn't as good because even though he technically might have won that round against Gabriel Santos, he got outstruck and outfought for the rest of that round. And he got rocked multiple times and arguably got knocked out before he even got submitted. So Jack Jenkins, super tough, but he can be hurt. And more importantly, he was hurt by southpaw tools. I think Ramon Taveras is super live in this fight. I don't blame anybody for picking Jack Jenkins, but at this price, I'm not sure how you can justify a play. I feel like it's dog or pass at these odds. Especially at anything around plus 240. I was thinking about taking a shot on plus 250 out of principle. But here's what I did instead, Mike. I did one of two late night Schmetschmann line bets that I always talk about. I always have these late night numbers. We'll talk about another one when we get to the Nolan fight. And they disappear by the time I wake up, right? This one I was able to get, and it didn't go. Of course, it didn't go anywhere, and it didn't end up going anywhere. You can still get it at plus 120, but I like the points handicap here. Plus 120, 3.5 points for Ramon Taveras. Now, Dan, his only losses are by knockout. And you say whenever you look at points handicaps, you got to check box durability. Again, I feel like I made decent cases for Ramon Taveras, those stoppage losses that, I don't know how much weight we can put into those. And again, I actually like that he's going up. He's going to be more durable. He's actually, I don't know if he's going to be the bigger guy here, but he's going to have the longer reach, leg reach, the taller guy. Jack Jenkins isn't a physical Khabib grappler. He's not a super long guy. So again, if you're moving up, like this is actually like a favorable matchup, both stature and style wise for Taveras to get up. And you're going to give me that much of a dog number. I got to pick Taveras here. I got to go dog here. And I'm going to go points handicap, which may be pussy. But I don't know, Mike. That's my inkling on this one. Feel free to call me crazy, brother, because, Jenkins is the justified favorite.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not laying no minus 300 on him.
Right.
I'm just saying he could look like a minus 300 if he implores the proper game plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing, just the last minute, the last item, then we'll jump and be faster on these folks. When these guys do go to decision, and you're like, well, damn, points handicap, like, who says they even go to decision? This fight could be over. I'm like, I think this fight actually has a decent decision potential. And if you look at them, both fighters, they are both in like sketchy splits all the time when it goes to the decision, right? Like that's been proven. Yeah. And B, Taveras is a guy, we talked about Jenkins being able to, get an, even though it's not boxing, it's not one-to-one, a knockdown doesn't automatically set you ahead in the round like it doesn't, it's the same degree of boxing, folks. That being said, the way Jack Jenkins won that round, that's kind of how Ramon Taveras wins all his rounds. He's not like the most highest volume guy, which is another reason why bettors don't like him, because they'll go to UFC.com, they'll look at the stats and be like, there's the whole story of the fight right there. His number bigger number, me win. So maybe people are doing that. But the dangerous thing is Taveras, the way he does actually win fights and rounds is if he doesn't knock you out, he knocks you down, right? So all he needs is, basically a knockdown and to survive to cash the points handicap. He doesn't even have to win that, right? Theoretically.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next fight, shall we? We spoke a lot on that one. Let's go to this one. One of my favorites, Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. Jake Matthews is minus 450, biggest favorite on the card there. Jake Matthews, sorry for my Aussie accent. You guys can brutalize me because I love you Aussies and you guys are funny as fuck, especially when you roast us. Neil Magny, come back on Neil, plus 325. Also, shout out to everybody in the chat. James Kendrick, shouting out my Benji boy, Ghost Phantom. Love you guys. And then Joseph Walton and George Montero, the really nice comments too. Appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't. Over 2.5 rounds for Matthews and Neil Magny, by the way. Minus 145. Under 2.5 rounds, plus 125, which tells me, Mike, they're not sure where it's going, which also makes it, dangerous to be so sure on Jake Matthews, much less on a fight where you're not sure where the total is. How sure should we be on the money line? Not that always lines up, of course, but is this another like a Jimmy Crute situation, Mike? Is this another favorite that we're siding with and we don't trust, or we don't trust and we're going to go that big number on Magny? What are you feeling here, brother?
No, this is definitely not a Jimmy Crute situation. The thing with Magny, the thing with Neil Magny is, look, if you really look at the trajectory of what's going on with him, this is like his. I think it's his like this is gonna be like his fourth fight in like maybe a smidge over a year. Like at his age, that's a lot. That means you're constantly in camp. Every 3 months you're taking a fight. Every 3 months you're taking a fight. That's showing me like he knows like the time is coming. He's trying to rack up some checks. If he gets some wins, he gets some wins. He's gonna come. He's gonna fight. Magny always comes in and does what he does. But when you look at Jake Matthews, the reason why there's not such a threat in him making that Jimmy Crute mistake is because I do believe he's a lot more durable. I do believe he's a better fighter. I do think he's much more polished. I do think he's smarter. He makes just better decisions in the cage. I also believe he's a better fighter than Jimmy Crute. I just look at this fight and I see Neil Magny having a lot of problems with this fight. Not to mention, you're looking at Jake Matthews and you look at his resume, you think he's like an older guy too. He's not. He's a very young kid. He's one of these, Max Holloway type prototypes that came into the UFC very, very young, and we kind of watched him grow. Did he grow to be a Max Holloway? No, but he's still really young. Like he's still a really young, fighter. Some kids his age are just coming into the UFC. Look at a guy in a Contender Series this week, 31 years old, and he's getting his shot. Crute's been for a while. What is it called? Matthews been there for a while.
Right.
From the power to the striking to the durability to being a bully in there, if Magny's trying to take him down and trying to just cage ride him, I just don't see it happening. I think Matthews is going to be able to really do what he wants in there with him. I got to be honest with you. I'm a Neil Magny truther. Like anytime Neil Magny fights, I'm always looking for a reason to kind of take him. I think he can pin him up against a cage. I think he can cage ride him, stall. If he gets that Neil Magny flow going, then he's a problem for anybody with his cardio and stuff like that. But in this spot, I can't even find a way that if Matthew shows up, that Magny wins this fight. He's not going to knock him out. He's not going to submit him. Like, where is he going to beat him? He's going to go. He's going to beat him by decision. Is Jake Matthews really going to be that lackadaisical that he's going to? I just don't see it. I like Jake Matthews here. I don't lay that kind of money on anybody. I don't care who it is. It's just so that from a betting perspective, like that's not nothing I would attack. But I totally understand why he's the number he is.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to look at it. And Magny, the book has been written on him so much, Mike, that he's one of those dudes where it's like, it's not, you don't even got to get creative and be like, oh, he's never fought a guy who faced leg kicks, and now he's facing someone who gets leg kicked. This is the angle or whatever shit I'm trying to get at. Like, you don't even have to do that with Magny, because he's the kind of guy where, like, even if the fighter he's facing isn't known for their leg kicks, they will come out there and leg kick him because it's so obvious, right, Mike?
Yeah, his legs are fucking like, they're like pipe cleaners.
Yeah. So I guess the question is you asked, just to play devil's advocate before we move on here, I'm picking Jake Matthews, but you asked how. I guess the only way Magny does win is if he's able to do his magic, that cue that Magny meme where he's got the spirals in his eyes. Look into my eyes. You want to clinch me. Clinch me.
Yeah. I just don't see Matthews doing that.
Yeah. Even though Matthews has found ways to, disappoint me in the grappling, which is weird because the grappling is his base, and he's been able to disappoint his backers by either not going to it enough or going to it and failing, which is kind of funny when you think about it. So in that sense, perhaps he could be primed too. But yeah, I feel like that magic trick, as most magic tricks in MMA, they run out of steam every time you use them, right? And I don't know how many more that Magny has in him, if at all. So yeah, I think it's a clear Jake Matthews pick, but at the prices, unless you want to start getting creative and like going like round 2 Matthews, which has done me well in a couple spots before, it's nothing really worth gambling on, in my opinion. You're really, you're doing some real gambling at that point. You're really throwing darts if you want to gamble on this one.
Yep.
All right, next fight we got Louie Sutherland, who they're flying all the way over from the UK, and that's how hard it is to find big guys, right? Like, I get the Tafa shuffle because Junior Tafa was initially scheduled, and they're doing the Tafa shuffle, not so last minute. but against Justin Tafa here. Of course, Justin Tafa, the southpaw, minus 125. Louie Sutherland plus 105. Come back on him. Pretty tight line considering. Plus 150 for over 2.5 rounds, under 2.5 rounds, minus 200. I didn't watch too much of Louie Sutherland. Just wanted to brush through his stuff to try to see if I can get some southpaw stats. Obviously, he's 0-0 against UFC level lefties and really didn't get to see too much of him. Tafa, you know what you're going to get. Typical, he's heavy hitting southpaw, got the heavy right hook, left hand. It's got some sneaky kicks on there for a big guy, but not a dependable guy as a favorite or a dog or any number you put on him. Mike, where are you at on this heavyweight slop fest?
Yeah, I don't got much to say about this. I can't. Listen, I just don't think the Tafa brothers are very good. And listen, I saw Tafa fight in the Apex Center, and bro, this dude can fucking crack. But to hear people talk about the Tafa brothers in the same breath as Mark Hunt is so disrespectful, bro. Like it's like just go back and watch Pride. Go back and watch Pride when Mark Hunt was literally reversing people from his back. I don't know if you remember I know he was smaller than him, but I don't know if you remember the Vanderlei fight. Do you remember that fight? Mark Hunt and
yeah. 100. Yeah.
He handed him his first loss. It was like a last minute thing. They brought him in. He was still kind of a relatively unknown. His fight with Mirko Krokop and stuff like that. Yeah, he's got a lot of bludgeons on his record, but I mean, to hear there's not a comparison. I just don't think they're very good, bro. I don't think they're very good. This is not a fight that I'm going to bet. It's like you said, it's a heavyweight slobber knocker, but I do see a fucking world where Sutherland like somehow manages to get on top of him, and this dude just can't get up, and it's over from there. Like that's the path to beat these guys.
Yep.
Put them on their back from almost like what you said with the leg kicks to Neil Magny. Even if you're not a leg kicker, leg kick them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even if you're not a wrestler, just take this guy to the ground. Like, just find a way to drape on him. Inside trip him. Just fall back, fall forward, do something. Get him to the. And once it's there, the round is either going to end there or you're going to finish him there. So if you're giving me that like probability that okay, I got these two sloppy heavyweights. If it hits the ground and Sutherland lands on top, chances are there's a high probability it's going to end there, or at least a round's going to end there. And then he sees, oh, I had success here. He's going to go back to it again. That's the way you beat the Tafa brothers. I mean, it's a very simplistic game plan. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not going near it. But wait a minute, what's the odds on this?
Tafa's slight favorite only. He's like in the minus 120 range, I believe. Come back like plus 100-ish on.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton going on there, but.
Yeah.
I listen. If you're looking for like some action, you're looking. Sutherland's not a terrible shot, dude. He's not. He's not a terrible dog shot. Small dog shot.
Yeah, this is one I might have to sit on the fence on because again, the travel is not going to affect my pick on this one too much because he's a heavyweight, so at least they're not having to cut weight. They'll have to deal with the jet lag, but he's not dealing with a weight cut on top of it, right? For other short notice guys, we may talk about here. The only thing left to say about this fight is the over 2.5 rounds is minus 260. I mean, what else do you need to know? Heavyweight slop fest. Hashtag fatty's gonna fatty. Shout out to my guy Brad Taschuk. So let's move on from that fight. We'll come back around when we recap picks for it. We got Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. I'm really interested in this fight. I think it should be a fun fight action wise. Of course, Tom Nolan minus 150 is your favorite. He was originally supposed to face Evan Elder, which was also a banger fight. But in steps Charlie Campbell, who did train with Evan Elder a bit in this camp out in Vegas, Syndicate, UFC PI, a lot of those guys mixing together. Charlie Campbell, of course, plus 125, his comeback. Plus 125 is also the number for the over 2.5 rounds, whilst the under 2.5 rounds stands at minus 145. I wish it still did. Because this was the other, before I pass it to you, Mike, this was the other Schmed Online one that I did sleep on. And of course, this is the one that changed. I don't know if it's because I'm just doing I'm up late doing the wee hours before the show, trying to cram as much in, especially because I covered Contender Series the night before. Then I got to shoot my video breakdowns for Junkie after that. So I'm up late usually, folks, on these nights before the podcast. That's not great for my performance. So maybe you guys have a point there. But yeah, like I saw minus 162. And it was listed as low as minus 150. Apparently at Schmetway, places like that. By the way, come sponsor us so I don't have to mention other sports books, and I can mention sports books with their/your proper name. Get at us. Get at Pat Mayo, the PME folks. But yeah, like you can still get that for -150. But sure enough, I had it like plugged in, and I wasn't sure. Sometimes I'll do this. I don't know if you guys have this in the audience or Mike, depending on what houses, whether it's mobile or on the desktop. A lot of betting places do this, I think, on purpose to take your money. But you ever place a bet and you hit the bet and then it's still in your betting window? Like, oh, and you go back, you forget about that. It's still in your active bet slip, and you're like, holy shit, did I forget to not bet this? And then you go and bet it. And then you check and you go, oh crap, I just bet it twice. That ever happened to you, Mike?
Yeah. Listen, real quick, who are you picking in this fight?
Sorry. I'm going Tom Nolan, which is
all right.
crazy.
So there's a reason why I ask.
Okay.
For this fight, I want to hear your rhymes and reasons why. And because you always hear mine first, I want to hear yours first.
Yes.
Okay.
Please. So yeah, so I feel like the under is the best. Regardless who you like, the under is the best play. And that late steam push, now it's getting pushed to 2-1 odds, where it should be, by the way, is proving that. So I just want to say that aside. That being said, it now has me looking closer at the Tom Nolan side for a possible bet, because again, even though it's not -150 range anymore, Tom Nolan is still -150 range if I'm looking for a bet on this fight. And he is who I like. Now, Mike, this could be overcorrection because I was not a believer in Tom Nolan. I was like, what did he do to deserve any of these big favorite lines? Give me Nicholas Mata all day. That was me on the Nicholas Mata dog train that served me well. And even though I came up just short last time, he still lost in a way that, god damn it, proved me right and hopefully get some respect on his name. So that's not a bad, with that being said, keeping that same energy, that's also not a really bad loss for Nolan, right? And he is still young. He just turned 25, and he showed that youthfulness that bettors will bet on all the time, but it really doesn't show even if they win, as far as those big skill jumps you would like to see, maybe you're expecting to see from these younger fighters. And Nolan was showing that. Now, he did show some troubling looks in the wrestling department. I'm surprised DC wasn't calling him out more for not running through on his shots. He gave him a compliment for running through his initial shots, but he was getting stuffed pretty hard by Borishev, who, again, I'm a Borishev defender. Unfortunately, even though I took Borishev in that fight and felt really good about it, folks, so I was like, Tom Nolan's fraudulent. Where you guys want to see fraud check? Watch Tom Nolan get fraud check. Completely wrong. Now, was I wrong? How much of it was I wrong because Borishev is shot? Now, I hate using that word. I don't like to use it. It's probably one of the last to use it for one of my guys, of course.
Now, do you think he's shot, or do you think that the alpha male is just a bad fit for him?
It could be both. And whether it's a growth issue or a deterioration, even if it's not a deterioration issue, the fact that he's an older guy and has so many miles on him, I don't know how much you could teach a old dog new tricks anyways.
Well, that's what I mean, because alpha male is obviously working on his grappling and stuff, and they're trying to and even though his grappling, honestly, I got to be honest with you, against Chase Hooper, even though he lost that fight, I was actually pretty surprised with his grappling. But I am a firm believer in camps will either hinder you or elevate you. And I never thought that alpha male was a good fit for him, ever.
Yeah, and I'll be curious with Charlie Campbell, because he came up in Serra-Longo, right? But as good as Serra-Longo is and this and that, we know that it's disjointed. Like Ray, but not that everyone's still friends, but both Ray and Matt with their schools are more separate. Matt barely even corners anybody, right?
Yeah.
Ray still corners them, but he doesn't train with them. He doesn't know the game plans as much. He's more just he checks in, or he maybe watches some sparring footage, right? And this is his own admission. I'm a big Ray Longo fan. This is not hate. I'm just saying these are things we have to come up with context. And Syndicate, it's right under John Wood. They seem to be getting their flow. But it's one of those camps where, as much as I want to give them credit, from Vince Morales, team captain, to John Wood and these guys there, it's not a camp where we can say we're like, oh, Jackson Wink tends to do this with this kind of fighters, right? Rafael Cordero turns grapplers into pressure strikers, right? Over at Kings. You can kind of see those habits, right? Oh, good game planning over at, over at this camp. Oh, good feints and jab leg kicks from City Kickboxing that we talked about, right? Camps have their staples, and I don't know if Syndicate really ever has their staples or how much they will, because they also fall in that thing that Extreme Couture, to be fair, can be accused of, where you got so many transplants. Yeah, it's a hot spot, but there's also so many transplants. How much of a trademark, how much of a team, how much of a, how dependable is it? Yeah, they're getting high level training, but I don't know if it's to the point where we can point like, oh, he's going to this camp, so he's going to be good at this. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Mike?
Yeah, I think we're kind of saying the same. The reason why I asked you to go first is because I wanted to see if maybe I was off for saying what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I think that like the table on this fight is flipped a little bit. I get it. Charlie Campbell's coming in. He's short notice, right?
Yes.
But I look at Tom Nolan and I'm not sold on him yet.
Right.
So I'm not sold on him yet. But also, I think people are underselling Campbell. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. I feel like it's so different. Like you got one guy who I'm not sold on yet, and another guy who I'm sold on more than the general population is. I think he's kind of underrated. Like they're not giving him enough credit. I don't know. Charles, there's something about this kid. Like I said, I'm not sitting. People are gonna fucking go in the comments. Oh, I'm not saying he's gonna be a top 10 guy anytime soon, but I'm saying this kid is a lot better than people think. I just think he's got a little bit more dog in him than Tom Nolan. You know what I mean? I really do.
See that. I can see that.
A little bit more dog in him than Nolan does. And also, when you look at a fight like this, some people look at the last minute replacement. Oh, he's coming in last minute, this and that. Sometimes that works to the detriment of the person who was getting ready for camp. They're so mentally entwined with another opposition. Now they got another guy coming in. He's going to be throwing different wrenches in the mix, and it can kind of throw you off when you're the late replacement guy. You're kind of coming, as long as you're in shape, as long as you're trained, you're kind of coming just fucking free flowing it. You're fighting loose. You really don't got that whole, kibosh to lose. So I don't know, something about this fight. Like I said, I love this fight. I think it's a really, really fun fight, but I think Charlie Campbell is going to win this fight by just being this much more of a dog.
It's funny because I agree, and those things could play out, right? Because obviously I could be overcorrecting the steering wheel. And back to what I said about trusting my reads, right? This could be a classic case where, Dan, no, your reads were right, bro. Nolan wasn't really that great, right? And Campbell, we simply don't know enough of him to not only for that alone being a reason for what you're saying is true, your analysis, Mike, but more specifically, I do think your analysis is correct as far as he's the more dogged guy. He's the more powerful guy. I think it's going to be a wash in the jiu-jitsu, but I think he could be the better positional wrestler, even though he's the less willing wrestler. Which could be interesting, right? Because even though Campbell's a wild guy who he kind of has that Andrea KGB Lee effect where he can grapple himself out of positive positions just as fast as he can grapple himself into positive positions, which can be a bad thing, right? So it's like, yeah, he could get to those positions, but is he going to hold it, right? And he's also a very dogged guy where it's like, I actually would give Nolan the better cardio and output because we've seen Charlie Campbell, he's more of a first-round finisher guy. We saw him gas against Trevor Peek in that second round. But in that Trevor Peek fight, he actually comes back in the third round, even though he looked dead tired. And it looked like he was actually giving the fight away, which was a really bad look and part of the reason also why I'm going toward Nolan. But to Charlie Campbell's credit, to what you said, Mike, he's got that dog in him. He showed that there. And if it becomes a dog fight, he could win in those fights. However, it is short notice. Right? There is the travel to Australia. And unlike Sutherland, who we pointed out, this guy's not a heavyweight. He's a lightweight. And Charlie Campbell's a big lightweight. He's 6 foot. He's 6 foot. He's a pretty meaty guy. He only had 14. This is only a 14-day notice fight, folks. So that means it's a week notice, right? Especially when it's an Australian road travel, because you're spending a week cutting weight, traveling, doing media, right? Catching up on your physicals, all your blood work that you didn't have done. You have to go rush all this stuff now. You're getting maybe a week of training in there, right? So
not to mention that, I don't want to cut you off, but please. But guys, there's one thing you got to remember about the weight cutting process. So if say you had a 2-week notice and he lived in Las Vegas and the fight was in Las Vegas, it's a much different than having 2 weeks notice and flying in altitude. When you fly in altitude, your body swells with water. So that process is even worse. I don't know if you guys ever flew maybe from the East Coast to the West Coast. You get off the plane, your ankles are a little swollen. When you take your shoes off, you see like the indention in your sneakers. That's all water retention. That's why a lot of guys, when they're getting ready for fights, they get out there a couple weeks early. They get out there for the time. They get out there to expel the water. They get out there to do that. So good point. I never brought that point up, but that's a
yeah, absolutely. And then just the last thing I'll say about Campbell is that it's two things. It's a plus and a negative. He's so wild and open. Like he does stuff that kind of makes me cringe. And I'm sure you've seen it too, Mike, where they throw the the lead uppercut from nakedly without a jab, without a feint. They just wind it up, right? And every time I still have Chuck Liddell and Rashad Evans burnt into my head, by the way. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, Mike, right? Oh, sorry. I think are you muted, Mike? Your mic drop out? It dropped out at the end, the last thing you said, but I haven't heard you pick it back up. But as Mike figures that out, but yeah, he can clearly hear me right now. But yeah, it reminds me of that, and that worries me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, beautiful. I can hear you, Mike. So that worries me a bit, his wide open style, and that's why I'm going to be picking Nolan here, the southpaw. It's another guy where size parity. I think Charlie Campbell is used to being the longer guy, and he's 0-0 against UFC level southpaws, folks. But I did my due diligence. I went through the regionals. He does fight one southpaw, this Brazilian guy Guilherme, on the regional scene, but that fight was on short notice, and that guy was like injured, not in great shape, and like his ankle gave out on him, and that pretty much led to the finish. So I don't know how much you could take from that. However, what I do like is that what I was saying about, jab and leg kick dynamic, for Jenkins and for Ulberg. How are they going to do with southpaws, right? That's what we've been harping on. Well, with this one, Charlie Campbell's style really didn't change too much when he fought a southpaw, Mike, because he's not a jabber. So in a way, it is almost a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like to give credence to the Charlie Campbell argument, like his style actually might not have to change that much because he's so wild and wide open. But that being said, I feel like this is going to be a good spot for Nolan. I did like the improvements. I want to, even though I don't want to overcorrect the steering wheel, Mike, I also don't want to be that guy who is just so dead set on getting somebody that you're missing the improvements. You're losing money on the table because you're dead set on being right because you hate this guy. Like, I also don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Of course.
Anyway, sorry, folks, to go long on that one, but I'm going to go with Nolan there. I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger because I feel like it's not a smart spot, even if I get a good number on Nolan. Because there's a lot of wait and see. And to be honest, again, the under was the real spot. If you can still hit that for a reasonable price, I think the under 2.5 rounds, I think this is going to be violent. But that's all I got for this one, Mike.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's be faster with these ones, especially Navajo Stirling versus Rodolfo Bellato. Navajo Stirling, of course, another city kickboxing guy on this card, minus 260. Bellato, the Brazilian road warrior, plus 210, minus 175 over 1.5 rounds, under 1.5 rounds, plus 153. Stirling is a guy who, like, I feel like I was like close to hitting the round twos on him, and I got to pull up for this fight because Bellato, I think people are this again. We talked about emotional betting, Mike. Could this be another emotional spot where people maybe trying to get Ramon Taveras back for a decision they felt was bad, right? Now people are thinking that Bellato, which I could care less if he did or didn't. I don't think he did for what it's worth. I think the slow-mo replay made it worse. But of course, he's public enemy number one for his last fight where he took the thematic dive and was seeing aliens. Your tweet cracked me up live on that one, Mike.
Wow.
You remember it. But yeah, what do you have on this fight and how much of this line is perhaps some recency bias as far as hype guy versus unpopular guy?
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I'm not a Navajo Stirling guy, and I'm going to tell you this. There's going to be a spot where I can't wait to fade him. I don't know what it is about this guy that everybody thinks he's so good. Like that he's this huge up and coming. I have not been impressed with him. I just have not been impressed with him. He's had some moments. What I mean moments, I mean like seconds in rounds where I'm like, that was nice. But for the majority of the time, like I'm just not. There's nothing that I sit back and I'm watching and I'm taking my notes and going, this fucking kid's going to be somebody. Like there's just nothing. There's nothing I've seen so far that allows me to believe that this kid is like this up and coming superstar. And when you look at Bellato, I think a lot of his public enemy number one, like you said, narrative is being pushed into this fight, and people might be sleeping on him a little bit, like maybe a little bit. Now, do I think he's a good fighter? No. Do I think if they fought 10 times he would win the majority of them? No. But I do think there are spots where he will snag or steal a couple of those fights against Stirling in the right situation. Do I think it's going to happen on this card? No. I think this is a spot, like I said, there's going to eventually be a spot to fade Stirling. I don't think this is the spot that I'm going to pick against them. But there is something, there's like an awkward silence about this fight where if Bellato ends up winning this fight, I would not be shocked. It would just like further secure my thought process on, okay, I get it. It was an upset, but I told you Stirling's just not very good.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all, man. I'm looking to see if the line surprised me because it opened. This is another case where it opened tighter, like the light heavyweight fight where we're both in the dog there with Reyes, right? And regardless of who you're on, I think we all, if you're sensible, this is a sensibility test. Regardless of who you're on, can you not get blinded by what side you're on and see the sensible bet, which could be the under for the fight we talked about before, or we talked about the sensible line being a little tighter for Reyes and Ulberg. I think the sensible line for this one should be tighter. In fact, I'm looking if I could get Bellato. I'm not trying to bet this fight, but if Bellato, I'm seeing it plus 200, which is already tempting. But if he goes even further above plus 2-1 dog odds, I feel like I got to stab him out of principle. But Mike, to your point, what you answered James Kendrick, which was spot on. And biasly, I'm going to agree with you because I'm doing really bad. So I'm even more so of that thought, really trying to be tighter on my bankroll right now. And to my credit, even though the results haven't been great, I have been doing so a little more selective, right? So I want to try to stay that way. And the same thing with why I took the points handicap for Taveras and maybe didn't jump on his money line, although there's perceived proverbial value there too, right? Is these plus 2-1 lines is if I'm struggling for my round robin, which I could be this week, despite having 14 fights to choose from. Like you put like a plus 2-1 money line. That's nice for the round robin because the round robin, folks, right? It's usually high number cheeky stuff like round 3, split decision, by submission, inside the distance. Like when you can get an actual money line, I mean, talking about kicking for coverage, right? Covering equity, right? Shout out to my guy Liam Fights Pixie. He gets that word equity stuck in my head. Want to give credit where it's due there. But yeah, you want to talk about that. Like if you can find a money line with solid value, I always love throwing those in the round robins because it's like, rain, sleet, or shine, by any means necessary. We cash so long as they win by any means necessary. And that could be a spot for Bellato. I want to move on here for the sake of brevity, but basically the reason is because I'm not as harsh as Navajo on my Navajo Stirling analysis as Mike was. And not that saying Mike was harsh or that he was even wrong, by the way. I actually completely sentiment with you, Mike. But what I'm saying is I'm just a little bit higher on him than perhaps you are. But even with that being said, right, the reason why I am not feeling him and have the same suspicions as you, Mike, and I'm actually going the other way here, right? I'm not going to sit on the fence like the other big guy fight, which I will come back around to you guys with the Sutherland one. I'll actually take a side here for the show, and I'll actually side with the dog Bellato because what was the lesson from not cashing those round two finishes when, especially in one of the fights, I think it was against Tuco Tokos, it was there. Well, yeah, okay, boo-hoo, Dan, you lost your bet, and that's not why I'm bringing up the bet, folks, here. I'm actually bringing it up for relevance, and I'm bringing up bets I lost for whatever it's worth. What I mean to say is, well, Dan, are you going to complain about that lost bet, or are you going to learn from it? And learn that this guy is still learning on the job, regardless of how good he is or isn't. He's still learning on the job, right? Regardless of how good Stirling is or isn't, maybe not the most dependable finishing instincts, right? And with a guy like Bellato, he will give you opportunities to finish him, right? Bellato takes damage, doesn't wear it well. But here's what Bellato does have. He's got insane heart. I mean, you want to talk about Charlie Campbell. He's kind of that Charlie Campbell archetype that I'm not saying you're saying he was, obviously, Mike, but as far as what he could be, we can say the same thing about Bellato, right? With that archetype. And if you're going to have a guy who you're not going to put away and allow to stick around, say what you will about Bellato, Mike, but Bellato's not a guy you want to stick around, right?
Exactly.
So I got Bellato here. I'll take him as an official pick. Mike, do you have an official pick for the show here? Or
yeah, I'm gonna stay with Stirling on this one. I just
okay.
Like I said, I'm not sitting here telling you guys this is a fight where like I was honestly on the fence with. I really was. I was honestly on the fence with, and I would not be surprised at all if Stirling drops the ball. I'm just not ready to fade him just yet. I'm waiting for the right spot. But quick shout out to my boy Nelson Marshall. He's one of the guys in my Discord. Always in there, always chiming in. He's got some great bets. Joe Walton's got a little bit of a bet here. 3-leg parlay for you boys. I think it has a real chance. Thickness sub, Crute sub, and Matthew sub pays out 101 odds. Hey, it's worth a crack.
Yeah, I think all those fighters, that's their pathways to victory. Spoiler alert on one of them. But let's push on to the next fight and try to push through these fast. We got Andre Petroski versus Cam Rowston. And perhaps another hype product on the way here. But we've got Houston actually is the underdog, though, plus 135. Showing some respect to Mr. Petroski. Minus 160. Minus 130 is the over 2.5 rounds. Under 2.5. Plus 210. Petroski will fight southpaw, even though he lists himself as a switch or orthodox fighter. So he can be hard to forecast and how he's going to come out, both stylistically as well as mood-wise, because sometimes he can just be in a shell of himself. I know that Michelle Pineda fight he took on short notice coming from Thailand, back to those last-minute travel over scenarios. Those can really affect you, right? That being said, even though Petroski has cashed me, he's also burnt me. So for that reason alone, plus a Cam House and a classic hyped fighter we got to learn more about, this feels like a classic stay away for me. But I will be siding with the favorite. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just boils down to I just haven't seen enough of this kid. Listen, I know Petroski's getting a little bit older. He has been straying away. I don't know what these fighters do sometimes. Like he kind of, they get caught up with a game plan that they just should not be pursuing. And sometimes Petroski does that. But at the end of the day, Petroski's pretty solid. I mean, he's not a world beater. He's not a guy who's ever going to be champion, but he's got enough skill. He's got enough cage time. He's got enough of a well-rounded game where I think it might be a little bit too much for Cam right now. So, yeah, I'm going to go Petroski.
All right, powerful. Let's go to the next fight, shall we? We got Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliott. Oban 14, baby. I love me some Oban. I haven't had Oban 14 in a while. That's my go-to.
That's good. That's a nice single malt, dude.
Yeah, you know what's up. You got another man of fine taste I'm speaking to over here. And I'm curious of what your taste is for this one. But we got Micallef minus 100, minus 120. Basically, pick 'em odds. Not too far from the opener. Oban Elliott did open as a slight favorite. There it has stayed. Minus 235 for the over 2.5, which also sounds about right. Under 2.5 rounds. Come back on that. Plus 195. Oban Elliott, we now officially have him against the southpaw. He stands 0-1 against UFC level lefties, dropping his last fight to Seung Hyun Ko. I believe that was the name. I didn't look at him going off the top of my head. Apologies to my Korean brothers and sisters if I just butchered that. But yeah, Ko showed up. He didn't get enough respect, clearly, but even that aside, he still overperformed. Whilst Oban Elliott kind of looked a bit lost against a lefty and looked a bit lost out there. I don't know if it was just due to the stance. Again, you don't want to take away from his Korean counterpart's skill. Whereas Micallef, he doesn't look like a lot on paper. I didn't expect much from him. And then he looked better than I thought his last fight. But I don't know how much, Mike, and we spoke about this dynamic before. You know what I'm talking about, Mike. I don't know how much better he looked as opposed to he just was one of those awkward but effective guys where you look at him and you're like, this guy ain't shit. And you're going with him and you're like, why is he tagging me? And he just doesn't make sense. And he's hitting harder than you realize. And Micallef seems like one of those dudes on the feet, at least. Obviously, he's got skills on the ground that could be neutralized. They could neutralize each other's skills on the ground. So I don't know, man. This could come down to the stance affair here. Mike, what do you got for this fight?
You know, I think a lot of people, I think the reason why this line is tighter than it is because people, and within right, because I'd be contradicting myself if I didn't pursue this path as well, is they're looking at Elliott's last fight where I'm not even going to sugarcoat. He looked fucking horrendous, dude. Like he looked like you said, lost out there. He couldn't get his footing. He couldn't get any rhythm. There was like no rhythmic tempo to him at all. It was almost like he didn't want to be there. Like it really. I mean, I think Ku wins the fight, great, but I mean, it was horrible. That was a horrible fight. So when you look at the back end of that, right? If you look at the back end of that, and you look at the fights beforehand, how good he looked, people were going into the Ku fight, go, bro, man, this dude is the truth. Now, if you flipped his resume around and you gave him that loss the first fight, and then he had these 3 losses, you're all mad. This whole thing would be flipped on its head. People are like, oh, the momentum, Oban Elliott, that he just had a bad fight, this, that. So it's too small of a sample size for me to look at that loss and say, this is what he is. Like, I look at the bigger sample size. I look at the couple fights. Sure, everybody's allowed to have a bad night. Is he allowed to have that kind of a bad night? I mean, you shouldn't have that kind of a bad night, but everybody's allowed to have a bad night. But for the majority of his UFC umbrella, he's been good. Like, he's been a tough kid. He's a good pressure, good gas tank, steps on the gas pedal, and we just everything. You just know. You see when you look at Micallef, you look at a guy who there's just a small sample size. Like there's just a small sample size of him. And I'm on your boat with him. Like I think he's good, but I don't know what to think of him yet. Like I really don't know what to think of him yet. And I think this is a spot where Oban Elliott's going to just remind people, like, I just had a really fucking bad night. Like I just had a really, really bad night. And I think Oban Elliott's going to bounce back in a really big way. And I think the line is actually miscued because of his last fight. I think he should be a little bit more of a favorite than he is, to be honest with you.
I agree with all that. I think it could very much so look like the biggest buy low spot on the card. In hindsight, of course, right? In hindsight, but to your point, it absolutely could look like that. And I think if there wasn't the big stance question mark, I would be very bullish on that angle, and I would be firing on Oban Elliott much more than I'm considering than firing on Tom Nolan. Not just because it's a slightly better price, but these are both similar guys where I didn't believe in Tom Nolan. I didn't believe in Oban Elliott either, right? And then they started getting my respect, right, Mike? So I'm in that same question with Tom Nolan, where is it going to be, Dan, you should have stuck to your reads the whole time, right? Or is it no, you were right and you were going off of information, and these could be potentially buy low spots for both Nolan and Oban Elliott. And again, even if you're not big believers on them, by the numbers, it technically is a buy low spot, because even though me and you felt they were overinflated, Mike, they shouldn't have been those big favorites. The fact is their average favorite line was pretty heavy prior to these fights. And that's just a fact. So
Agreed.
So yeah, from a price perspective, Elliott's very attractive there. We'll see if there's any action that he gets from us on it. I'm more curious to see from the general public, because again, it feels like it's a screaming buy low spot. But we'll see. We're both Elliott for this one. I think we're going to be super fast on the rest of this fights, possibly, except for me for maybe this next one. I won't even be that long, but I do have some passion. And for Jamie Mullarkey versus Rolando Bedoya, and I don't comment enough on these picks enough like my guy Mike does, but we love the Doppelganger gang. And now that I have a co-host that will, is old enough to understand my references, is Jamie Mullarkey not Ted Danson's bastard, right? His Australian bastard. Ted Danson forehead there.
He looks that, and he looks like Brandy from Pee Wee's Playhouse, the guy that came to the right? That comes to the window.
Yes. I try to get Mike with a reference, and he fucking counters me with a fucking beautiful one, and just gets me off my feet. Beautiful. Of course, obviously, Mullarkey is the favorite there, -1, or not the favorite actually. It's actually pick'em. It's been fluctuating the line. It opened at -110, so we'll stick with that. Bedoya -110. Of course, former welterweight Bedoya shouldn't have been up there. Former featherweight, not sure how Mullarkey got down there. They're meeting at the right spot. Over 2.5 rounds, -235. Under 2.5, +195. That under kind of jumps out at me because Mullarkey's chin, right? That's been the big thing that stands out. That's the most recent thing in our memory. However, Bedoya is very durable and arguably could be overmatched here, right? So in that sense, maybe it is a more of a longer fight. I like Mullarkey in this spot. Before I hand it off to you, Mike, I just want to say I was listening to Alexander Volkanovski do a breakdown, and it's funny. This is the first time he was trying to do a breakdown, right? And he's like, you guys want picks? I don't know if you want picks. I'm too biased. I'm going to pick all the New Zealand fighters, right? So he was going through these struggles that like we go through, right? So you're seeing him have to break down the fight, but then he's coming across fighters he has bias or connections with. So it was pretty cool from that aspect. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, folks, is because Volkanovski, for as good of a fighter as he is, as great of a strategist, this guy is, I want to play poker against this guy. He's got to be a terrible poker player. Terrible liar, terrible poker face. He's out there giving away his guys' game plans. Of course, he trains with Jamie Mullarkey, right? And he was doing his best not to give it away. But he's like, I know Jamie Mullarkey's gotten hurt, but he's got a lot of skills. He's got a lot of takedowns that you can look. I forget I said that. I don't want to give away the game plan. He could take this fight wherever he wants to go. I'm like, all right, thank you, Volkanovski, for telling me to bet the total takedown prop. By the way, folks, I know I recommended the last time I recommended total takedown props. They have lost technically. However, they were both very sneaky spots with good numbers, with Rob Font and Johnny Walker both going for them. They fought for your money, folks. And this is another spot just based on Alexander Volkanovski slipping up alone, which you don't even need to, because look at the obvious on paper pathway. You're probably not going to get a great number on it. But I just want to bring that up, Mike, before I toss it to you. Total takedowns could be live in this spot. I'm going with Jamie Mullarkey again. It could be another buy low spot like we've talked about. I think people are going off the recent results, which are very troubling, even for Mullarkey truthers like myself, the Ted Danson defenders. But man, I felt like I couldn't say no to Mullarkey at -110 here, and I fired.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say buy low spot. One thing we're going to do, I think, after every podcast, after we're done, I think it'd be good for us to do this. It has nothing to do with fighting. I think after every episode, we have to give a cult following movie for people to watch. I have to give one. You have to give one.
I love it.
It's got to be a cult following movie. Well, it doesn't have to be a cult following movie because we'll end up running out. But we'll try to keep him as cult following as we can. All right, so
I love that. Yeah, let's do it.
This fight, Bedoya 8,200, Mullarkey 8,000 in DraftKings. When I look at that, that's what I was looking at it from that perspective.
Okay, yeah.
This is a buy low spot for Mullarkey. Yeah. I think people are looking too much into his chin. Listen, he's not durable. He absolutely has a terrible chin. It's just dusted at this point. Right. When you look at Bedoya, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's not a good fighter. The only thing he does really bring into the cage is durability, like you said. Mm-hmm. But if Mullarkey comes in with the right game plan and decides, look, I've accepted this. Like, my chin is not good. I have to do everything to protect my chin. So what do? I counter that with, I'm going to wrestle as much as I can. I'm going to get inside as much as I can. I'm going to take the space away. I'm not going to let him be able to, get any kind of leverage in his shots on me. And I'm just going to do everything in my power to utilize the things that I'm better than him at, which he is, and just make sure my chin is tucked and make sure I'm inside on him. I think this could be a really big buy low spot in Mullarkey. I think if Mullarkey does, protect his chin and come in with the right game plan, I just personally think he's better everywhere. I think Bedoya is getting ready to be cut, after this fight. So yeah, give me Mullarkey.
Yep, I agree with that. And I'll also be keeping an eye out for the total takedowns number, even though I'm already exposed. And I don't think it'll be that great of a number, but it just seems like too much of an obvious play there. Let's knock out these last three. We got or last four, I should say, filled with some southpaws here as well. Again, southpaws sprinkled throughout. We got Colby Thicknesse, down with the Thicknesse versus Josias Musasa. Musasa minus 160, Thicknesse plus 135, over 2.5 rounds minus 130, under 2.5 plus 110. Now, Thicknesse, again, somebody mentioned that him by submission. That's definitely his path. We did see Musasa get stumbled by the submissions. However, even though there's a lot less to say and a lot less of a number to say it with, this could be touching the dynamic of a buy low spot if Musasa is as good as perhaps I wanted him to be coming off the Contender Series. Not that I have massive hopes for him or anybody that earlier in their career, by the way, but I'm just saying is that I actually liked a lot from Musasa. I think there's a lot to build off there. Seemed to be a durable southpaw, but he got that classic prospect loss from Carlos Vera, which was your classic prospect losses. Usually come by submission, whether they're club and sub like we saw, or just like some like crafty leg lock thing like Conor McGregor got caught on in the regionals, right? Like a lot of those times when you talk about those prospect losses coming up, the reason why we mention them is because, again, you take it with a grain of salt, especially if they've happened a while ago. But then also when they do happen, they do tend to happen kind of by submission there. You know what I'm saying? And that obviously happened with Musasa right out of the gate. Obviously, I'm not alone by thinking highly of him, Mike, right? Because they're still favoring him here over the hometown cat, so to speak. And spoiler alert, I'm going to pick Musasa, but the line and everything, it's not. This is more of a stay away for me though than it is a buy low at the end of the day. Where do you stand on this one, Mike?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about this is I'm always very skeptical of like very athletic fighters. I just am, because it's like when you have certain, like when you really look at some of the guys like Mark Diakese, who's another one who was like super athletic, ARA, like when you go through the regionals and you go through the majority of your career, being able to bridge gaps with your athleticism, sometimes that allows you not to fill in the gaps and take that caulk and fill in your holes, because you're like, I've been getting away with my athleticism so long. Musasa just reminds me of that guy. Like, he's gotten away with so much, like on the regional circuits and against lower competition, that once he gets into a level where guys can systematically kind of slow things down, they can kind of slow things down. Your athleticism looks good in there. Everything looks great in there. But once the guy gets his paws on you, maybe drags it to the ground or something like that. Like, it's almost like a guy who's a 10 at boxing and the guy was 0. But if you take the boxer and you put him on his fucking back, what good is his punches? What good is his punches? They're not good anymore. Same thing with athleticism. If you know how to nullify certain things, like, then they're going to have to figure out, okay, well, I can't use my athleticism. What am I going to use now? Now, I'm not saying he's just an athlete. The kid is, but he's a good athlete. He's got, he's got a pretty decent game. But I think this is a fight where Thicknesse can kind of just lull him into his game, where he could just kind of be patient, sit and wait. I know his takedowns aren't tremendous, but he's got the far and better grappling, I think. And I think if he does manage to hit the mat with this fight, I think he can end this fight by sub. I think it's a very interesting fight. I'm not really high on Thicknesse, but I do see a path for him. I see a path for Musasa too, but I'm going to go with, if you're giving me 15 minutes, and if he can get this fight to the ground, if he can just somehow get it to the ground, I think Musasa's game will kind of unravel a little bit. So I'm going to take Thicknesse.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick. I'm curious to see how he deals with the southpaw again. He's training with Mullarkey and Volkanovski, who aren't southpaws, but they've both gotten ready for southpaws before, and can switch stances. So be curious to see how that goes. And for what it's worth, Mike, I like what you said about pulling him in, because for what it's worth, according to Volkanovski, who again was doing his damnedest to not give away the game plans, but he actually did just that. So according to Volkanovski, his game plan here, Mike, Thicknesse, is to play, which is smart. Sounds like he's going to play all the way in, all the way out, pull him into offense, whether it's counter takedowns or punches. And obviously, when it's all the way in time, that's where his perceived advantage is, and he'll be pumping the gas whenever he gets to those positions. So I think he's going to be coming in here with a good game plan, man. So I do think Thicknesse is a live dog. I think your analysis is spot on. I'm going to stick with my Musasa pick, but I'll be staying away. All right, next fight, Luana Carolina, who I hate fighters like this, Mike. She's like got the Bruno Blendado Silva thing where like she lists herself as one stance and mainly fights the other. She lists herself as orthodox, but she mainly fights southpaw. She's facing Michelle Montague, who's very physical. You're going to want to watch the weigh-in. She's been mainly fighting over, what was it, PFL or whatever, at 145s. A little bit of Bellator as well. Yeah, I want to watch a little more on her. I do like, from what I've seen, the physicality. I think she can beat Carolina. Sorry, I know Dayton just had the odds up there. But we got, of course, Montague minus 225, Carolina plus 185 as the underdog, minus 155 for the over 2.5 rounds, under 2.5 for plus 135. I do think this goes over either way, but yeah, I don't like Carolina's style. She backs herself up to the fence too much, and I think she's going to invite the physicality of Montague. So I'm going to lean toward Montague here. I don't blame anybody for going with the CF dot model on a dog, but Mike, do you got anything on this one? Any strong leans either way?
No, I mean, I think Montague wins this fight. I just think she has that bully ability, the grappling ability. Carolina, there's nothing really that she does that I can pinpoint, say she does that really good. She knows how to stay in fights. That's what she does. And if you stay in fights, you give yourself an opportunity. So yeah, she'll steal the fights from the Storylenkos and stuff like that. But it's a fight, honestly, like I'm staying away from. But from a pick perspective, I think she should win this fight. I just don't. I think Carolina's a little bit too much of like. You ever see that movie? You ever see that movie Loverboy?
No.
The pizza delivery guy with the extra anchovies on the pizza when they call him up, and when the girls want them, they say extra anchovies.
That sounds really familiar now. Yeah.
One of the guys that is married to Christy Alley in the movie, he owns this robot company.
I remember this movie.
And there's these little robots. They're like, tick, 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 tick. Like that's what Carolina reminds me of. She just reminds me of like there's nothing wired into her game. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't really have any interest there, but I'm gonna go Montenegro.
Remind me of that Bill Burr skit with women. They always want to keep you busy. What's that? You just gotta put them in a different direction and send them the other way for a while. Keep them busy. They're going that direction. We got like 5 minutes. That's great. And by the way, real quick, Carolina 1-0 against UFC level lefties. Montague is a southpaw. Of course, that was against Ivana Petrovic in a decision. But again, I think the grappling is going to decide it. And Thicknesse, by the way, was 0-0 against UFC level lefties. All right, let's move it on to the next fight, shall we? I believe we're two we get out of here. We got Brando Pericic. I'm guessing we got another Croatian.
Wait, look how popular they are.
Yeah, right. Alicia versus Alicia Ellison. And of course, we got minus 220 versus Pano. They're both in blackface right here. They don't even have a profile photo. Minus 220 for the Australian, of course, plus 180 for the American. Under 1.5, minus 220. Over 1.5 plus 185. At those odds, I actually would maybe look at the over, but of course, this is not a fight that you want to seriously bet. But speaking of plus money, I actually like the dog in this spot. He's an undersized. I know I actually taped this fight. I can't believe it. He's an undersized. Ellison he's a stout, athletic, undersized guy, but looks like he can really do some pop and some damage in the pocket. Whereas Petrovic is going to have a clear size edge, and his defense isn't that great, but it looks like he just uses his size and durability and just bullies his way in, and really likes to mess guys up in the clinch and put his size on them. So the game plan seems pretty straightforward. At the same time, I do feel like he might get a little more than he bargained for against Elijah Ellison, who low key is like a heavyweight who can also grapple and take backs and stuff and wrestle a little bit. Like how good, I don't know. But if I see a heavyweight with like competent ground game, like I give him automatically massive points in my book because there's so little at all to speak of. So I'm going to go with the dog here. Do you have any opinion on this fight? I don't blame you if you don't, by the way, Mike.
The only opinion I have on this fight is fuck off.
Yes.
That's it. Now I'm going to go. I mean, listen, I honestly, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't have a pick here. I just don't. Like, there's nothing that I'm not going to sit here and take his analysis and run with it. I don't have a pick. Like, I really don't have a pick on this fight.
I don't blame you, man. This was supposed to be a contender series fight. Sorry,
yeah,
Mike.
It doesn't interest me at all, dude.
For sure. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say this was also supposed to be a contender series fight. It's one of those classic things where they're just trying to plug holes in the UFC. I don't even know if plug holes again. It's 14 fight cards. How many do you guys need? But with how many people they're signing, the bloated roster, they're just trying. Again, this is one of those classic cases. We don't even know if these guys are ready. They're supposed to be auditioning for Dana White, but because the schedule is in need, they do this before, right, Mike? They take whole matchups and they just plug it in the card. These are so dangerous to bet. Yep. So dangerous, folks. Yep. All right. Lastly, but not leastly, we have. I gotta do my tie for Loma Lokbonmi versus Alexa Thainara. Loma Lokbonmi plus 200. Thainara looks like a bad guy out of an old James Bond film. Minus 250, minus 245 for the over 1.5 rounds, plus 203 for the under 1.5 rounds, which is kind of a strange spread, but I get it because even though it's a women's fight that always has the length potential to go to decision, so to speak, Tainara's physical, man. As much as I hate it because I'm a Loma fan, I could see her bullying her, even competing her with the leg kicks, even though she's a bit road on the feet and maybe could give Loma some counter opportunities. That bullying power, it takes you even longer. That athleticism and stuff, it takes you further, I should say, in the women's divisions. So I'm gonna begrudgingly lean toward Tainara here. I would not be upset for my girl Loma to upset. I'm rooting for Loma, but I think it's a tough matchup. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, the thing with Loma is like when she first came in, I didn't know what to think of her. I'm like, I'm not really sure. I know she comes in credentialed and stuff like that. And then I started buying into her a little bit. I was like, she's a dog. Like, she goes in there, she fights. She's going to be in your face. She's going to fight with every last minute that she actually has in there if she's still alive. But then all of a sudden, like, as this fight's going on, I just saw, like, here's the ceiling. And as she was climbing, here's the ceiling. And then all of a sudden, it was just this.
Yeah.
It was just this. Like, it's like there was no progression. Like, you just know exactly what you're getting from her. And there's never a progression. And although that will work, that style will work because she is in your face. She does have a polished, kickboxing background and stuff like that. But eventually, like, you got to progress. And she hasn't progressed. And I think this is where, like, the end of the road comes when it comes to taking an L. I think that the NR is just, stronger. I think she's got more ways to win. I think she can fight out in range a little bit better. I think she's just as tough. Like, she's willing to jump into a foxhole with you and fight fire with fire. And I don't think those are the kind of fights that Loma wins. Loma wants somebody who's going to be a little bit more submissive. And I don't think Theonara is going to be that. So I do like Theonara to win this fight.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we're on the same page there. All right. Not too bad, folks. We got through 14 fights before the 1 hour and 45-minute mark, which this 7 minutes or so should leave us enough room. We'll give you a DOP parlay that will be slowly cooking. I'm curious of what Dayton's dog of the week is, as we'll give you the Benji Boy dog of the week. Dayton, not to put you on the spot, buddy, but before we recap all our picks in place here, let's get our specials highlighted. Do you have a Dayton dog of the week? You did well again. Going for the looks, you had what was her name? Reminded us of one of our ex-girlfriends, I'm pretty sure. But that one cashed for you last week in the women's fight. What does Dayton have for us this week, Dayton?
Yeah, Montserrat Rendon got me back to 2-2, so we're looking all right. But this week we've got Ivan Erslan.
Oh, here we go.
You guys were saying
he's live.
That, as long as Jimmy Crute goes in with the old gas out in the first round, then Ivan might be live, and I'll stick with that. As
all
much
right.
as you guys were saying, it kind of took me back on my pick, but I got to stick with it.
He looks like a fucking deranged Dr. Spock in that picture.
He does. Yeah, he looks like some weird Star Trek character for some reason. Yeah, like he's gonna Vulcan pinch the Jimmy Crute for old Dayton there. Dayton, I thought you were gonna go with maybe someone with an M or something, although they're all picking prices because so far you've got Micallef and the Monster Rat have come through to you. Those M nicknames have been doing you well. We'll see. I don't know what the hell Ivan Erslan is classified under, but man, he's your dog this week, brother. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
All
now,
right.
for dog of the week, if you want to get fucking risque, we can get a little risque here.
For our Benji Boy dog of the week?
No, for the parlay.
Oh yeah, for the parlay. I think the Benji Boy dog of the parlay. I think we decided on that one, right? That's going to be we're going like last week. We're going top of the card again. Like we got Diego Lopez was last week. We're going to go Dominick Reyes for the Benji Boy dog of the week. There he is, Benji Boy. Miss you, buddy. Let's see if we can channel some of your energy through the MMA gods and give us some cash in our pocket, buddy. And I appreciate that, Dayton. I love that. But let's build our DLP parlay. So I had 2 legs in mind that could set us up for a decent but hittable 3-legger. I only got the chalk legs, okay?
Go ahead.
One of them's dangerous, kind of. It's a pick'em price. It's just Mullarkey straight up, money line.
That was what I was going to throw in. Go ahead.
Okay. And then even though I complained about the under being out of range for a straight play, I still think anything under -2 to 1 for under 2.5 rounds in the, the Charlie Campbell versus Tom Nolan fight. I feel like that under is there. We don't have to go with that. There's things for probably better numbers that we can go with as far as a favorite price, but I feel like that's
under 2.5.
Yeah,
minus 180.
Not that there's a safe leg, but again, I feel like that's one of the safer chalk things you could play.
You think it's chalk?
The under? Yeah, the under is chalk. It's -193 where I'm looking, but it's still -150 at some places. Under 2.5 rounds, Charlie Campbell, Tom Nolan.
Let's throw that in for now. Oh, that's not 5 rounds.
No, 2.5 rounds. I said under 2.5 rounds.
All right, so that'll bring you to plus 194.
And then my idea was we throw a nice dog, or not a dog, but maybe at least a plus money line if you want to get creative.
Well, we got to go 4.
And see where that ends up with.
We got to go 4.
We will go 4. I'm just curious if we can get there. If we can get if we can get like over plus 700.
Well, we got to put Reyes in there.
We
got to put Reyes in there.
That's what I was thinking. What does that bring us to?
So Reyes will bring us to where is he? Where's my guy? Plus 2. That'll bring us to plus 798. Now, if we want to saddle up and have a sack of nuts,
okay,
and that's 798, and we want to go with the possibly low selling point with Oban Elliott as well, that brings us to 1535.
Holy shit! You know, it's funny. I'm more of a fan.
This is a dangerous parlay. Very dangerous.
Well, here it's dangerous, and I'm more of a fan than 3 than 4 legs, right? And especially if we can get a good number with 3, why go 4? However, to play devil's advocate on your side, Mike, the dangerous leg that we're talking about, if we're being honest, even though he's the Benji Boy dog of the week and he's a consensus, the dangerous leg is Dominick Reyes. And the second most dangerous leg could arguably be Mullarkey, as much as we like him, if we're including the under as well as the money line on -130 for Oban Elliott, right? So what I'm saying is, if we add that Oban Elliott line, yes, we're going 4 instead of 3 legs, which is more dangerous by logic. However, I'm not too worried about the Oban Elliott line, if that makes sense. As far as that being the ad, you know what I'm saying?
I'm going for the value on it.
Yeah. So in that sense, if what you're worried on, it can bite you in the 3 leg just as much as it can bite you in the 4. Maybe why not go for the 4? Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's do it.
Is that what you're saying, Mike?
Yeah, we got Oban Elliott,
right.
We got Dominick Reyes, we got under 2.5 in the Charlie Campbell Nolan fight, and we got Jeremy Mullarkey. That's playing out plus 1535.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Plus 1535. Now, before we recap the picks and plays as we do go down, Mike, was there a movie that you wanted to shout out? Did you want to start that this week? Was there something that was
we're starting this week.
recently?
All right, so guys, the cult following movie of the week for me is going to be an older movie, probably in the 80s, I believe, with Charlie Sheen, called The Wrath.
Ooh, I've seen this in my.
How good is it?
No, I gotta go back and
You
watch
never
it.
saw The Wrap?
I haven't seen it since my Blockbuster video, early '90s, perusing the video lanes. The rap that was
So The Wrath is pretty much, guys. It's bro. The movie's. I mean, if you're into those cult following,
I'm going to
movies,
revisit this one.
So The Wrath is about a group of kids who literally like they're into like race cars, but they're like race cars from like Dodge Daytonas like that they soup up. And Charlie Sheen is a guy who dies and he comes back as the Wrath for vengeance against all. Bro, I love it, dude. It's such a corny movie, but it's so fucking good, dude.
All right, so I feel like I could recommend a lot, but to wind it back into the show here as we close out because we forgot to do our head-to-head, Mike. I'm sitting here going like I got the PFP that I fucking hey. I don't think anybody can take me seriously. You guys love it. And if I lose this third head-to-head, guys, I'm gonna do a show like Val Kilmer from Real Genius, right?
That's a great movie. The popcorn.
Yeah, there we go. But here's the thing. I'm like, man, I mean, not that we've had to worry about one of your punishments for a minute now, Mike, granted, with the breaks and you winning and all. That being said, I'm like, we haven't been thinking of anything cool for Mike outside of a shot, folks. And if you're looking for something outside of a shot, I'm thinking I'm going to make Mike watch some really fucked up movies. Have you ever seen Irreversible, Mike?
I don't think so.
Irreversible, yes. Mike's going to have to watch Irreversible, folks.
Human Centipede, I saw Human Centipede.
Oh, it's worse.
Wait, what was the most fucked up movie you've ever seen? I know mine already.
It might Irreversible's up there, but I haven't seen a Serbian film yet. I might make
That's
you
it?
watch that.
That's mine.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, we know what you're going to make me watch if I go 0-3 again.
Bro, I don't even suggest anybody watch it, dude. Like after I watched that movie, bro, I felt so dirty after that movie, bro. Like I was like, I cannot fucking believe I just watched that movie.
All I heard was from one of my film podcasts that I used to listen to back in the day say newborn porn, and I'm like, I'm out,
bro.
I'm out.
I didn't even, bro.
Nothing with babies.
Bro, I didn't even know that. I was literally on one night. I was laying down because I like watching like all fucked up movies and shit. Like,
yeah, I know, me too.
Clockwork Orange is like one of my favorite movies, right?
Sure.
Well, I'm like, and Serbian film. It just kept popping up. I was like, I gotta see what the fuck this is about. So I watched it, and bro, I regret why. Like, it was just such a fucked up movie, dude.
Guys, comment below your favorite fucked up films, and not just that, but comment them in the spirit of, do you want us to punish each other by making each other watch fucked up films that we both haven't watched before? We both just came up with like Jaws like golden trophies to throw at each other, by the way. Let us know in the comments your favorite fucked up films, and if you like that idea. If not, again, feel free to pitch us other ideas for the head-to-head. Mike, there is a decent amount of head-to-head that we can go to this week. Which ones do we want to go with, though, for our bet? We've got Jenkins versus Ramon Taveras. We're on opposite sides of. Yeah?
Well, I don't know. The odds are 270. I mean, it's up to you.
And I'm on. To be fair, I would, but to be fair to me, right? I am 0-2, and then I'd be taking another giant dog. And
let's you know what? Let's do Tom Nolan, Charlie Campbell. That's fair.
That's close enough, right? And you're technically giving me the favorite. That's really sportsmanlike of you. I don't think I could turn that down. And that's a good fight. Maybe. And you know what? Not saying I still might end up putting a bet on him, although it makes more sense on Oban Elliott after talking this through. But this is good because even though I missed my under, we can still have action on the under with the DOP, and I can still have the action of head to head, even though there's no money on the line to perhaps keep me safe from fucking Tom Nolan, who I'm really going to hate Tom Nolan, by the way, guys. You guys thought I hated him before. If he lets me down in this spot now and I got to shave my sideburns and come with the I Love Toxic Waste shirt on next week's show, yeah, you know I'm going to hate Tom Nolan.
You know what I'll do? Because they want to experience what I'm doing. Yeah. You know, they're not like, if me watching a movie, they're going to be like, all right, well, how's that benefit us? Like, I'll eat something real fucked up.
That's true.
Like, I'll eat something that I really don't like. Something like really fucking.
Let us know in the comments, folks. Give us some ideas. Let us know what you think of that idea.
It's like, you're not going to get me to eat fucking dog shit or something.
No.
Like something disgusting, like something that you just wouldn't eat. And raw something that's not going to get me sick or.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, so let's go recap, and I'll recap I'll recap all our plays. But picks from the top. So from the top, we are both taking Dominick Reyes, who is the Benji Boy Dog of the Week. We're both semi-reluctantly picking Crute, probably more reluctantly now that our guy Dayton's Dog of the Week is Evan Erslan, for those of you keeping track. But yes, me and Mike both did did pick opposite of Dayton's dog in the week, so Dayton will have some extra. And he might be able to make us both do something. Speaking of bets, like if Dayton wins when we're both against him, I feel like he should get something extra for that, Mike. We are split on this one, which actually kind of it makes sense. Jack Jenkins, rightful favorite. Mike is on him. Taking a flyer on Taveras is the dog. We both like Jake Matthews over Neil Magny. So I was sitting on the fence on this one. I will still reserve my right to change, but I'm going to go ahead and pick Tafa. But I am not confident. I would not put money on him. And did you pick Sutherland for purposes of the show, Mike? I know it's not one you're confident on either.
Yeah.
All right. We are also opposite on Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. Mike is going with New York there, Charlie Campbell. Typical. I'm just kidding. And I'm going to go with Tom Nolan, a guy I hate, which that's a terrible combination. But we're head to head on that one, folks. So stay tuned if I have to do a big bet payoff there. We're split on this one, although neither of us are confident, nor should anybody be confident, where Mike has Navajo Stirling. I have Bellato. I believe we both picked Andre Petroski, but this is not a fight we are interested in either. We both like Oban Elliott. In fact, think it's a buy low spot. So much the fact that maybe we even threw him in our parlay there, which we'll recap to you at the end here. We both like Mullarkey as a buy low spot. I fired on him. We are opposite here. Mike taking a dog shot on a live dog in Thicknesse. I'm sticking with the favorite in Musasa. We'll see how it shakes out. Not too bullish either way. We are both taking the size of Michelle Montague over Luana Carolina. So we're both on the favorite there. Mike, I'm sorry. Did you have a pick for this trash fire of a heavyweight fight between Perisic and Ellison? I know I'm taking the underdog Ellison. Do you have a pick for the sake of the show?
I'm just gonna ride with you.
That's cool. Totally fine. Stated you were honest and upfront with that one. We were both taking Thainara over Loma Lokbomi, even though we both have some love for Loma, but Thainara will probably roll there. Again, not one we're interested in putting a lot of money on. I took a shot on Reyes plus 210 at a unit. Mullarkey minus 110 at 1.10 units. Taveras 3.5 points. Handicap plus 120. Might throw Bellato in a round robin if his number stays above 2-1 because I'm tempted to play, but I don't want to play it. Tempted to play Elliott. Tempted to play Nolan, but probably won't since they're thankfully in the parlay now. But that's what we got there. Check out my Substack, substack.com. Dan Tom MMA with the / there to find me, my picks and plays. Mike, where can they find you, your plays, and anything else you want to say about this card before we get out of here, bud?
Yeah, so as far as the card, I just want to reiterate something that somebody said in the chat. You don't got to bet every card, guys. Like, nobody's holding a gun to your head. Be smart with your bankroll. You know what I mean? Like, one thing about gambling and one thing about playing that not enough people talk about, but it's bankroll management. Like, you got to learn how to manage your bankroll. Units, don't listen to people when they talk units. Units mean nothing. Units became a thing all of a sudden. Units mean nothing. Yeah. Because a unit for me can be 100. A unit for DT could be 1,000. Units mean also a unit for somebody can be $10. So if a unit for me is $100 and a unit for you is $10, you have to bet 10 units. Okay, so you look at 10 units to be equivalent to my one. So if you see like 50 units on somebody, you're like, oh my God, they bet $5,000. No. Yeah, everybody's different. A unit can be $1 for you. Like nobody's going to tell you that. So bankroll management is really, really important. You got to learn when to sit back, learn when to attack hard, learn when to just put your toes in the water. You got to learn these things, and you got to manage your bankroll properly. Like there was a couple weeks ago, where DT said, this is a card I'm probably going to sit back on, and he sat back on it, and that's because he knows, like, this is where I want to go. This is how I want to do it. I'm not just going to fire off to go. Once you start chasing, that's when it becomes a mess. That's why, like, when you see these, content providers out there, they're throwing 50, 60 bets out. Like, first of all, they're not betting all these. I assure you of that. They're not betting all. Secondly, people with lives who have kids and they're married and they have lives, they can't sit there all day long, bet 50 bets, and then when the content providers are wrong, they're hedging out with live bets. Like, who's got time to actually fucking do that? Nobody. So, I mean, it gives you more stress than fun. So what you want to do is you just want to pick and choose your spots wisely. That's basically what I say. You don't need 10 bets or 20 bets on the card. If you see one, bet one that night. There was an old thing on Boardwalk Empire His name was Rothstein, and he was a this is a true story. He was a Jewish gangster out of New York. And what he did pretty much was he was the one who organized crime. He was the one, and I talked about this on the boxing show that I did for Pat. He was the one who came up with organized crime. And he used to have this saying all the time because he was a big gambler. He was the one who fixed the World Series and everything back in the day. And he got caught doing it. So basically what happened was he would say, like, there's sometimes I don't place a bet in a month, in 2 months, or a year. He's like, but when I see an opportunity and I see a hole, I go all in. And that's the way a real mindset, a real gambler plays. Somebody who really knows what they're doing. There's points and times where he don't touch nothing for a month, but then he'll see that spot to attack and he goes all in. So that's the kind of mind. And I'm not telling you to go all in, but I'm telling you it's okay to sit back. So other than that, if you want my stuff, go to madlabmma.com. We do football, we do boxing, we do MMA. I got guys in my Discord doing soccer and hockey, and you get it all under one umbrella. We don't charge you. We don't tell you to buy betting guides or anything like that. You sign up for MMA, you get everything free. We got about 7 guys on staff doing NFL right now. Our guy J-Mac is on a tear with college and NFL. He's the guy. He's with the hot hand right now to follow. So come check us out, guys. We have weekly memberships, monthly memberships, yearly memberships. We have a great Discord, and come hang out with us.
Mike, that was fantastic advice. I especially love the historical reference. I love those references. I love that show, by the way, Boardwalk. That was a solid show. I enjoyed that show. And that, I don't know how accurate they got it, but they definitely did their best to incorporate some historical accuracies that I appreciated as well. I will say, as you're saying that, though, my dumb ass, speaking of people who know what they're doing or don't know what they're doing, in my case, Elliott just dropped to -118 on Schmetschman Online.
All right, well, that's good.
That's kind of that. I don't know if I can say no to that, dude.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, even if he loses, that's.
You got to remember, a lot of this money that's coming in right now is kind of public money. You know what I mean? The sharp money starts to fly in a little bit later.
Yes.
So this could be a lot of public money. And you got to remember, there's perception with his last performance. There's a heavy perception on his last performance. So take that for what you will, guys. But
yeah, and even if you don't think yourself as a casual, you can fall into it by falling into the FOMO trap, because it's also a lot of FOMO money comes in pre-weigh-ins. Everyone wants to post the plays, show their cock size, and it's like, yo, they didn't even weigh in yet. Like most of the real bettors that I know, the long-time bettors, profitable bettors, they're making their bets later in the week as opposed to early folks.
Yep.
Just saying. All right. Have a good show, everybody. I hope you enjoy this. I know it was a long one, but again, UFC are hitting us with 14 fight slates. Find my guy Mike, all his plays and analysis, themadlabmma.com. Find me on all social platforms, including Substack, if you want to find my picks and plays. Dan Tom MMA on all platforms, and of course, I will post my picks and plays on Fight Day. Haven't been doing the big GIF and the whole rollouts because they haven't felt worth it. And then since I stopped, no one complained. So maybe I was right and no one really cared. We just want the picks and plays, Dan. So we're going to do our best to give those to you every week. Thank you for joining us. Hit the like, subscribe, share it out. Feel free to say something nice, tag us, share us. All good either way. Good luck with your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.